Good. I want to look like I'm in, like, in my dungeon, which this is my dungeon. This is where I get all the reading done.
Wow.
I'm trying to work on my lighting. I don't want to be too bright.
No, I think you're good. You're good. Like, you'll be fine.
Got my notes.
Are you kidding?
This is just a plan that I really, really like that I'll kind of reference. I think his name is Dr. Let's see, Brian Wilson. Let me see.
Brian Wilson. Let's all for Brian Wilson.
Yeah, Byron Wilson. Byron Wilson.
Right.
And like he literally lays out a plan that I think is a very good plan for a long run strategy.
Interesting.
So I might reference that, and then these are my notes, which but it'll go fast when you're talking.
Yeah, it depends. If you're just reading it, it could be really fast. You get some messages.
Yeah, and I think let's see. I think which I always prepare notes and then I never look at them while I'm doing something. So we'll see.
Yeah, but usually when you prepare, even if you don't look at them, it helps.
Yeah.
You know what you're going to be talking about. Santi's here.
San,
come say hello.
Hey, y'all.
How are you?
What's up?
Good. How are y'all?
We're good.
Trying to make it.
No, tell me about it.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, I was trying to figure out if I'm pronouncing your name right. If I say Santi, is that okay?
That is perfectly okay.
Are you sure? Like, can you pronounce it for me?
It's fancy, but however you pronounce it, it's perfectly
Fancy.
fine.
I want to pronounce it the way you do because that's the most perfect way. Santi.
Let me save this. This looks good. I saved so many articles. I try to go back and read them, but you never have time
he
to
made
read
a
all.
study, so that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to stop my video because I'm about to go get coffee. But everyone who's here, you're welcome to, talk to us until we start the panel if you want to.
And I want my stuff to be up higher.
We have like 20 minutes, so you can set up everything that you want.
I can mess around with it.
As you want. Hello, Celinda.
Hello, comrades.
Ooh, that background is fire.
Yes.
I'm trying to play with it to see if it's the right one.
I love the background, but I see right now you're kind of blue because of like what I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the filter.
Maybe a different one.
It looks good for me.
No, but it's
Like,
good. No, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try a couple of others. Let me see.
Okay.
That one is too. It's not showing him, and
Yeah, we don't really see.
It's not sized right.
that's just.
Yeah, these ones are not sized right, I think.
And go with the first one. It was just like a little tint on you, not that you were like. I think that's what you were saying, right, Roland?
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah,
fine.
it's fine.
Oh, but are you using your phone?
There we go.
That was weird.
Let me see.
I'm gonna try that. Let me see.
Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to got super sleepy. You know how you get super sleepy before.
But if I
was
sit
trying to
more
do
to
something.
this side, am I still blue?
Like it's just a little, so like it's fine. We can still.
It's perfect.
Yeah, so it's
I
perfect.
think you're good.
Yeah.
Are you
And my heart is broken, so it's fitting.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been a tough week. A tough week? It's been like a tough few months, actually.
I was on your understand what's going on. And yeah, that's tough. That's heavy, sister. So for you to be, working and while that's going on.
We gotta keep it pushing. Keep it pushing. We cannot let off the gas.
She has like the right energy. It's just amazing. Like I don't think I've ever met someone like that. Who can just manage everything like at the same time and still, like right now you're smiling. This is just like yeah.
We have to continue to hold hope.
Yeah.
As
You're
long
right.
as our hope, that's when injustice is won.
I like that.
I have a question. So I also run a mutual aid project out of my house. And so we, the volunteers are here packing food for families right now. And they have, like, we got a music vibe and stuff going on in there. Right in the background. They're right next door to me. But I don't want to steal their music from them, but I also want to make sure that it's not coming through or interfering on the sound on here.
I don't hear it.
If we can hear you now, like the music.
I'll be quiet and let me know if you hear music blasting in the background.
Okay, I will send you like something. I'll send you a text and say, Selena, we can't hear you because of music, but I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't hear it.
Okay, good.
We're
Okay.
good. Hi, Shanika.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Hey. So it's a no-go for me, Rolanda. It's a no-go.
I know.
It's a no-go.
I know. I get it.
But I'm here for more support.
You've been so supportive, so thank you very much. You're the one who brought us Celinda and Jared. So yeah, like you've done the work. Thank you so much. If I could do it, I don't
Offer
know.
my resources to you.
Hold up.
Yeah, I do good. I'm gonna disappear.
All right, so
You. Okay, I'm just gonna go get coffee. I don't know about you guys.
go ahead.
Water? Thank you.
I'm trying to get my lighting just right.
I think it has to be like behind your behind your computer.
Okay. I think that might be good. It's so bright though. Maybe down one notch.
I had to put my Burmy in the Ocean shirt on.
Oh man.
Oh, I love it. Okay, wait. I want to read all of it.
Oh, it's
Oh,
not.
it's not appearing because of the poster. Okay.
There you go. I see it.
Oh, that was good and wow. Thank you. Okay, now Jared.
Check them
All
out.
our lost ancestors.
It's your last? Sorry.
Can you see him, Celine?
Oh, that's dope.
Killmonger and T'Challa, yeah. Keep them, keep my. I'm kind of feeling like Killmonger was right, but T'Challa had to be Obama, and
It's gonna take all different kinds.
yeah, we need them all,
All of them. Yeah, we get all the angles.
Uh-huh.
But it's working. It's happening. Did you see the Christopher Columbus statue on fire at the thrown in the lake
No, what was it
in Virginia?
Man. I was talking with some people yesterday, trying to wrap my head around not necessarily the fund the police part, because I understand that, but the abolish the police part. And
I have a whole workshop on it.
yeah, can you link me to some of that? Because I want to know, because it's interesting, because a revolution really is the breaking, dismantling, and removal of one system and the replacement of it with another. A lot of what we've done is reform. So I wonder, I just want to see like what the other side of that is looking like. Okay, if we get, what is the next system? And
I'm gonna send you my Abolition 101 workshop that I go around the and do, and it's about police and prison abolition.
Yeah.
Because our argument.
I want to, I didn't want to speak too on this and be uninformed.
Yeah, no, it takes all the voices. But what so the theory that we use is that prison and police abolition has very little to do with the people behind the walls. It has everything to do with us building the society that no longer requires police or prison.
Yes, okay.
And so we believe and know and understand from our ancestors, from the tribal ancestors before us, that they didn't need those systems to exist. We know how to care for each other. We know how to hold each other accountable. We don't need those systems for that.
That makes much more sense. I was thinking, I'm going to talk about that a little bit in regards to schooling. That I think the reason that the police are there and like the zero tolerance rule in schools is because we're not working on managing the trauma and mental health of the students that are in, those socioeconomic statuses or in those urban communities. And we just basically like isolate them, right? Like they're bad, put them here so we can, go on. And I think
I actually argue something more systemic and deeper than that is that this country, so racial capitalism is dependent on our bodies. And so what they're doing with our young people is just preparing the next generation of slaves. And all the prison pipeline,
yep.
are just bringing them into that system to continue to uphold racial capitalism. Because when you look at the $1 billion industries that benefit from slave labor in the country, like slavery is still rampant here, and it's bigger than ever. It's bigger than it was when legalized slavery existed in this country. Yeah. Because now it's been contracted out to corporations.
Yeah,
and
so
so
I had the distinct privilege of working with some kids from 9th grade, 10th, 11th, 12th, and now they're graduated, right? And like I've watched it happen, right? Like as soon as they graduated, or 10th grade, right there in that little groove, they're gone. They're just they're disappearing, and we talk about how they're conditioned throughout the whole education system, where when they get isolated and they go to a alternative school, then that's nothing but a baby prison right there. And then they come back and then they do something and then they get another 45-day bid, right? And then when they get out, like when they graduate, it's nothing for them to get sucked up, So yeah, that makes much more sense. So.
I talk about that because I was an 8th grade push-out. So I only went to school through the 8th grade. And so I was a street kid. I hustled dope. I slept outside. I did that was where I come from. I never expected to even be alive today. If you would have asked me at 15 years old, was I be here? I wouldn't have believed you. And so these systems are only designed for the profit of our bodies and to oppress us because we are money to them.
Yeah.
And that's what. So really, when we talk about systemic racism, just the concept of race, right? Race is a social construct that was designed to uphold racial capitalism.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Although it's not real, we cannot ignore it as a tool of oppression. And so, when we talk about these systems, like it's all by design. So school to prison pipeline, all these things. So that's why reform is not possible to us liberation. We can never tinker with the system that was never designed for us. We can never assimilate into that system. It was never made for us. It was made for white man landowners over 21. And so the system can never be tinkered enough for it to lead to our liberation.
And I think that's a piece I was going to speak to with one of the books I'm going to suggest when we start talking about the book part. But Derek Bell's interest convergence theory, where he says that they never give us anything that they haven't already found a way around, right? So you get desegregation. Well, they've already built private schools. They've already rezoned your city, so they don't even go to school.
Yeah.
And so I think you're
They're
right.
still in Louisiana right now. In Hammond, Louisiana, they're still dealing with Brown versus Board of Education. Still right now today. The
Yeah.
schools are still segregated in Hammond, Louisiana, and that litigation is still in play right now.
That's crazy. And like I do, I think we talked about that when we was on the other one. I do a little experiment with my kids. Like the way that they zoned off this city that I live in is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You can like be walking and be in one county, and then like a step over here, and you're in this other county, and then you step a little bit further, and you're back in the county you were in. And that's all. I mean, it's positioned around them wanting athletes to be in certain places,
Yeah.
and then it's crazy how. And I think I was talking to a guy, one of my Kenyan friends, about how I think the issue is we aren't as consistent with the push. And so when something happens, they push their line so far because those systems are always working. That we have to tear something up to get back so yeah.
Yep.
All right, we should save some for the panel.
They're massively sophisticated, and they can into what is next.
So I feel you, man. I think people are afraid of this whole, this actual revolution that's kind of taking place. I think people are afraid because, like you said, we've just been trying to tinker with it, and now it's just like, look, we're sick of it,
Yeah, we're fighting the same fight that our ancestors fought. We're standing on shoulders of greatness. And as
tear it down.
Inches forward. 100 years ago, our ancestors could have never imagined we'd be here having this conversation.
Yeah.
Progress doesn't feel like it's happening. It is moving. We are getting closer and closer to what our children are gonna need.
I saw something that you posted a little while ago, because I was looking for, like I said, I was doing some research on your husband, and it said that it's disrespectful, and this is a big pet peeve of mine, it's disrespectful to talk about your ancestors in a frame of reference to where it's like, this isn't their movement or something like that. I didn't read the whole article, but I've seen it enough. I've seen that play out enough. And I say that all the time. Like, what do you mean? I mean, this is just the continuation of it. We're closer to the final stages, but you don't even get to talk like this if they didn't make these sacrifices,
Word.
Yeah, you don't even get to say something so foolish if it wasn't for them doing those things,
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm always calling on the ancestors for our protection, and we know we're protected by our ancestors, and we know that carrying their wisdom.
Absolutely. I strategically put two of my favorite ancestors behind me for whenever I do anything, just from the idea, you need them there, man.
Yeah, I do a healing justice exercise surrounding that, where we do a stretch up high, and we pull the wisdom of the ancestors in.
Yes.
Side to side, and we bring all our people with us. And we reach and stretch down low, and we give back to the earth the things that are too heavy for us to hold right now, because the earth can handle it.
Yeah.
And
that's dope.
Is to help ground us every day.
Yeah. There's a proverb, I believe it's a old Nigerian proverb, probably from, I think it's called the Ifa religion, Ifa or Yoruba, but it just says that, and it was a part of how I chose my name, Akila Missouri, but it says that you got to speak with the wind that the ancestors brought, right? So you speak with, you just kind of speak with all that wind that's inside of you from them throughout all the generations, and you'll be okay,
Absolutely. And I think that's the big lie, right? That's the big lie of colonization, is that our ancestors were weak or didn't fight back. Our people fought from jump street.
Yes.
We never stopped fighting. And our people freed ourselves. Like this whole notion of Lincoln and all this bullshit that they...
Yeah, they kill that. That make me sick with that.
Our people...
Hell, he was just worried about money. They were worried about money on that end.
He negotiated with the to leave the loophole in the 13th Amendment so that racial capitalism could continue on. And so we know a white man will never free us.
I'm doing
Our
this on the
people
side
free
right
us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was talking to a brother, my man, matter of fact, I think Lincoln, he's from Harlem, but he was like, and I'm gonna speak to that too. He was like, you got to be aware too that, you know, the white man is the devil. You know, you do the reform, you say you do the reform, you say you want a car, he'll give you a car and it'll have no wheels. You know? I was like, ooh, that's tough, man. And so same thing like you said with Lincoln. And the things that he said after emancipation are just, you know, the things that, and even the way he was talking.
How could we ever believe that the slave owner is who freed us? You know, there's so many big lies. But that happened intentionally because they allowed the daughters of the South, the women of the Ku Klux Klan, to hijack our education system in the United States and build all these myths of Christopher Columbus being a hero, of the Civil War was about states' rights, all the rhetoric and lies that we are still living today is still in our children's books.
It's still there. And then did you see when they were trying to say that slaves were unpaid immigrants or something in Texas at times? I'm like, these people are crazy, man.
I know.
And
Sometimes
like,
you hear it, you're like, hold on, what'd you just say? Hold on.
yeah, man.
You're
Like
hurting
that,
my
man.
ears right now.
You were dealing. I don't know if you listened to Killer Mike. But his Run the Jewels thing, yeah, he got a thing where he tried to live exclusively black on the Netflix thing, and he's talking to ELP, and he's in the soul food restaurant, and ELP's like, you know, you guys didn't grow that, right? And then Killer Mike's like, what do you mean? He was like, you can't eat that. It's probably from a white farm or something. And he was like, oh my God, you guys are an unstoppable force. And he was like, yeah, that's what they tell us. I was like, there's so much truth in just that comedic line, you know? Man, it's crazy.
And he does a great job about like the way he brings it, because you know, the beauty of Killer Mike is that he's us and he speaks our language, and so he's able to help to bring political education in a way that our people can digest. Yeah, like I think a lot of intellectuals lose the line to urban youth because they can't speak their language yet, you know.
You're absolutely right.
And I think that, you know, there's a lot, we have to move our people forward just a little bit more to get them ready for Pan-Africanism, you know, and prepare them for the next level of dialogue that has to happen for Black people.
I think James Baldwin has a quote that says, and I may butcher it because I've read like all these books, and so it's just all just sitting in there, but that success in America is often predicated on how quickly I become white. And I think that speaks to kind of what you were saying about this idea that, you know, as an intellectual, when you go up so much that you lose the language. And I remember, man, when I first started my master's program, I'd go home and my homeboys would be like, oh, you got that college accent, you know?
You guys switching on us.
Yeah, you know, they were like, hey, come back, man, you know, and I'm like,
come
wow.
back, we need you.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's a piece of what I'm trying to do, that I try to make sure that I keep, is that openness and that understanding of where I come from, and that I'm only able to move like this because I've acquired the hegemonic rules, right, of higher education, and I'm very fearful of the way that they'll try and silence me as I continue to go up, you know, or how they'll use the position. You see a lot with professors.
Absolutely, Angela Davis. They tried to even keep her from allowing her to teach. You know, they used all the systems of oppression to keep us, the intellectual that's woke and conscious.
Yeah. Yo, I'm loving the comments, y'all. I'm seeing them. I got it pulled up. Yo, I'm loving it. Let me see.
Yes, to our sisters and brothers, our relatives, our Tene relatives out there. I do much work on the Navajo Nation, sending love. You know, it all began with the genocide of our people here, our Native people, and we're here for you. We understand that our liberation is connected.
Absolutely. I was playing Red Dead Redemption. Media always changes things around, but I was just the guy, the cowboy was just talking about how bad things were, about how bad it was what they were doing to the Native Americans, and acting like it was them, like it was their fault, right? Which is what they do with everybody. You're in this position because this is America. I mean, the guy, the captain of the army, sits down with this Native American chief and he says, "We're all Americans, right?" And I was like, the gall of that statement is bananas. And then they add in that meritocracy that Americans do in general. If you would just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you wouldn't
It's all a lie. Yeah, those are the big lies.
So.
And that's not who we are as a people, and we never have been. We live in community. We live and support each other. We thrive with each other when we're connected. And our people, our tribal ancestors have always done that. We need the tribe. We are a village. And so that whole concept is racial capitalism. That's the way that they teach us to divide and splinter off from each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No connected, we're mighty, and they don't exist when we're connected.
Of course, said no feet, no bootstraps. Yeah. Brown is black to white people. Yeah. The country came to us. Yeah. I read a quote that said, "We must remember who we were before they drew lines around us." And it's referencing, colonialization, and I was like, wow, that's heavy. That's heavy. Yeah, we got to get rid of that meritocracy. I mean, it's impossible to even think that you have a country where meritocracy is warranted when we know, even when we get like the Civil Rights Act, even when we get like the Civil Rights Act of 65, 64, and then the Fair Housing Act of 68, you just start redlining. You
They stripped all those down now in the current. They've already stripped those down back again.
Yeah, man. So, and that goes to my point, man. I think we need a consistent push that is just as permanent as systemic racism is in this country. But also, we need to really analyze, like I said, this revolution that's going on, because we may be in a position to, so like,
when I saw Amazon burning in California, oh man, we were dancing around the house.
Yeah, man. I seen there's a video of a sister outside. I think she said she worked with the Push organization, and she's talking about how people are upset with rioters, and it was an amazing video to watch. It was an amazing video, and I love when we don't meet, and I think that's been a piece of my life in general, but when we don't meet what the stereotypical intellectual looks like, right? Like when someone sees me and I tell them I'm a teacher, they immediately say I'm a coach, and then I teach science, right? And then I tell them, no, I teach English, I coach nothing, I just like to lift weights, And, it's just a part of a personal revolution, because I just feel like, you need to be ready to fight physically, economically, spiritually, and intellectually. So I'm always, I can't control outside of me, but I made my whole life about me being ready and my whole family being ready. So, but I think I love that, because she didn't look like, right, what came out. And I was like, that's beautiful, because we gotta dismantle that,
Right.
What does an intellectual look like? Everybody can be that,
Absolutely. I say I got a PhD from the streets.
Yeah. Somebody said Stokely. Oh, that's my boy Doc. Stokely said the Civil Rights Bill weren't for us. Hell no, yeah. But yet for them, and I think too, when I was talking yesterday about the Martin left laws and Malcolm left ideas idea, I had forgotten that they rioted right after they murdered Martin, and that the Civil Rights Bill isn't signed is signed after the riots, right? And so that's probably just another piece of, okay, we know what we need to do, and this will make them chill, right? To speak to what you're talking about, Doc, to not condemn themselves for their treatment of us, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, but definitely send me that stuff on the workshop about abolishing, because I want to be able to understand it and speak to it, and be able to throw,
I'll share my workshops with you. I do another one about the intersection of the U.S. military and the prison industrial complex.
Mm-hmm.
With a breakdown conversation about those intersections. And then I have another one that I do with labor unions about capitalism and convincing labor unions that their workers have much more alignment with the prisoner that they ever will with the Jeff Bezos.
Capitalism and intellectualism.
Do you think that?
I got a piece that I'm going to speak to in here about, because I think they asked me something about,
I think it's up to us.
Yeah.
I do.
I don't know, but to me it deals with access to information. And when you mentioned Jeff Bezos, when COVID initially hit, all of these investors were aware of the moves they needed to make in order to make these billions. And I think not only just them, but upper middle class, white Americans, and the black bourgeoisie were very, very aware of the opportunity that existed because of the recession, which even now, I think they released that a few days ago that we were in a recession, as if we didn't know. But
we always been poor. We've been feeling this.
It's going to be
we always
interesting.
been in a recession.
Yeah, it's a permanent recession. But it's going to be interesting that access.
How we acknowledge their rhetoric means so much, and how they chop and screw to try to convince people of a false reality.
Yeah, absolutely. There it is. What's up, brother?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, man, we're trying to make it. I was gonna wear my dashiki today, man, but I'm saving it for Juneteenth. It's in the cleaners, man. I'm gonna hop out real fresh. It's gonna be. I need you to give me. Go ahead.
I had this one brought over straight from the motherland. So
that's what I need, man. I need a link to get them straight from the motherland, so I'm not buying them from, these thrift shops. No, I want that real. So when we get off this call or whenever, man, I need a link where I can get it from directly from
Absolutely.
them. And I know my people want some from directly from there too, because I see it all the time on my social media. We don't want that made in China.
It's actually crazy because there's a whole industry of artisans that have been surviving for hundreds of years, on this art form.
Mm-hmm.
And now most of them are going out of business because Chinese are flooding the market with
Absolutely,
it's crazy because now you go to buy it and you don't know which is actually made here and which is, so it's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, man. So I need that plug, brother. I need that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see here. I wish I knew how to. Matter of fact, let me share it. It should be. I bet they are already live on Facebook, so I can share it on there. Let's see.
Okay, so everyone, the reason why we are still waiting, we're waiting for Ayua. She's not there yet.
Okay. Is it already live so I can share it on Facebook?
It's not live yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Now we're talking. And everyone who's not part of the panel, can you stop your video and mute yourself? And at the end of the panel, you will have the chance to participate, ask questions. And I'm seeing the chats right now, and there's a lot of discussion going. So
yeah, we've been booming. We've been booming.
It's actually hard to talk about.
We've been going for 15 minutes already.
We could have actually started the live and
Yeah, we were booming, man. Let me see here.
That feels okay with me if you want to.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Do you have to accept people rolling? Because I got someone that's saying that it says connecting.
Yeah, and it's not working?
Let me see. Are you in?
No, usually they can just access. We don't have a waiting room or something. They can just.
Yeah, it might have been her. It might have been messaged her. Let me see. Man, I need to read that Revolutionary Suicide Cat. Like I really, really need to read that. And I have passed over that in the bookstore because, well, you know how we are, because Cat is a fellow bookstagrammer. But, you know, you go in and you're looking for something, and then you just get sidetracked. And I keep on doing that. It's trying to hit me up on Messenger. I think that's Iowa. Let me see. I tried to answer it. Iowa.
Yeah.
She tried to call on the video chat.
But stop. Can I have that?
Mine.
No.
I found it and I can do it if I want.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Look at your homework. Daddy, open his eye. You have a question. Okay?
Watch a lot of TV if you do your homework.
Oh,
I think Daddy wanted to get you started.
that's my accident.
So here we go. Okay, I'm back in.
Seems to be going.
Hey.
Hi.
You made it. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm good.
I cannot actually put all names to the faces, so
It's
for
okay.
your problems have been.
It's your reward. I think they do.
No, everything.
Okay, well, you know, we're trying to make you guys be able to be whatever you want when you grow up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing background noises. It's very funny. Is it from you? Because
I don't think so.
Okay. So everyone, I think we're going to go live. So I'm gonna ask all of you, our panelists, to stop your videos because I want to introduce you. So you can come in as I introduce you, and I'll be reading your videos.
Okay, sure.
So I'm gonna be the only one in here now. You still here, Jared?
Oh, let me stop mine. I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself too.
You don't have to. It's okay. And Malachi.
We're gonna be on quarantine on QR and LR, right?
Yeah, we're going to be on both.
I've been sending people there too in case they didn't want to get on the chat.
Yeah. Okay. I think whichever page they go on. Malachi. I don't know if the person can hear me. So Jerry, just tell me, do you see somebody else on the screen right now? Aside from me?
It's just you right now.
Roland, I do see him actually.
Okay.
I'm not sure why just us.
I don't know. I think he's frozen. Actually.
Okay.
It's not moving.
Jared, you don't see him?
I see him, but he's frozen.
Yeah, he's frozen for me too.
What about now?
Stop video. Yeah.
You see me now?
I'm talking about you, Jared. We have
Okay, he's gone now. He's gone now.
Oh, okay. I thought it was me. I was gonna dance until you couldn't see me anymore.
It's okay, we see you. When we call you, perfect. So are we ready to go live?
Yes, I'll give you the countdown. Is everything good for sound? Like there's no rogue volumes on somewhere?
I think so. We're good.
Okay, great. Okay, so if everyone can keep your volume and video off until the Q&A, except for the panelists. Okay, we're going live in just a minute. Okay. Okay, use camera. Okay, we're almost ready.
Take your time.
Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, let's go. Okay, going live in 2, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first panel organized by Quarantine Renaissance and QR Live Resistance. So if you're not familiar with Quarantine Renaissance is a movement that brings people together. It's a movement of transnational solidarity, and it's a movement where people learn through interacting every day, and we have people from everywhere. So you're actually very welcome to join the movement. And so QR Live Resistance or Live Resistance, depending on how you call it, is an emerging page actually that derives from Quarantine Renaissance, and it's aiming to give the voice to the people who are fighting every day for justice in their own way. And so now my name is Roland, introducing myself. Yeah. I'm a business student at Concordia University. I come from Burkina Faso, but I have been living in Canada for 6 years now. The question of systemic racism for me, I think is something that should be discussed in a global way, for us to realize that we're not only, dealing with discrimination and name calling, we are dealing with an entire system. We're dealing with an entire history and the justice itself. And so today, our panelists with different backgrounds and amazing backgrounds actually will actually discuss systemic racism on their own way. So thank you to the audience for joining us. I see that we do have a lot of people actually on the Zoom meeting, and for people following on live, if you do have questions at the end of the panel, and if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can just type your question and we will try to answer it. And if you're with us on Zoom, you can type your questions on Zoom as well, and we'll try to answer it. And I think there's a discussion that's going to be accessible for you at the end, because it does feel like people have a lot to talk about. Now, introducing our first panelist, please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Santi Ezel. If we can see her. Santi lives in Mississippi. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. So Santi, she currently works at a university. She has a nonprofit that works with youth on civic and community engagement with the aim to train them to be boots on the ground and address the issues that their community may be facing. Santi, I'm really happy to have you here today, and I can't wait to hear you.
Thank you.
Our next panelist goes by the name Akili Inzuri. He's going to appear by the name Jared, but we will call him Akili because we love that name, but also because Akili means in Swahili, beautiful mind. Hi, Jared.
Hey.
So Akili owns and operates an organization called A Black Man Reading on Instagram, where he actually informs people of topics like race, racism, and equality. And he owns also through that to A Black Man Reading a program called Reading to Lead, where he teaches young Black men how to be page assassins. That's how he calls it. And by reading and immediately utilizing their new knowledge to extract change in themselves and, in themselves, their communities, and those around them. Actually, you also teaches in high school. We're so happy to have you today. How are you?
I'm doing amazing, man. I'm very happy to be here, very excited to talk on this topic, but even more excited to hear what everyone else has to say and learn, right?
That's amazing. We're happy to have you here, and we can't wait to hear you as well. So our first panelist, guys, we have Celinda Guerrero. Her main work is actually, hi, Celinda.
Hello, thank you.
How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for creating this platform.
Thank you so much for being here. So Celinda's main work is to give the voice to the voiceless. Has grassroots human rights activist. She is an organizer for Save the Kids, which is a national all-volunteer organization building a movement to end the school-to-prison pipeline. She also leads Million for Prisoners, the New Mexico chapter, a national movement to abolish the loophole in the 13th Amendment. We will actually talk about that today. She is an organizer for Justice for Jacques Lewis. And actually the Black Lives Matters in New Mexico group, in which Celinda takes part, has rebranded itself into building the power for Black New Mexico. And the goal is to call out and to be intentional about Black liberation frameworks to ensure they are giving truthful political education to our people. And all of her work is intersectional with focus on issues concerning police violence, injustices within the prison industrial complex, and addressing underlying issues of generational poverty. She actually does a lot. Access to housing, education, employment, and healthcare. And today, Celinda will actually also be speaking on behalf of her husband, Clifton White, who is currently detained in connection with them organizing a Black Lives Matter demonstration. So thank you for joining us today, Celinda. I know you do have a lot to do, but thank you for taking the time to join us for this panel. Next, we're meeting Ayewa Agoyon. Ayewa, are you here?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Ayewa was born in 1990, and she lived in Lomé, Togo, until she was 11. She later moved to Lisbon, which is in Portugal, if you're wondering, where she pursued her studies first in the French high school, and later she moved to Portuguese one. She is a graduate biological engineering at Lisbon University, and she worked for a French security services and logistic company. She later moved to the UK, where she worked at a lab technician, for P&G. She currently lives in Rome, which is in Italy, and growing up living in Europe, racism and discrimination were a constant battle in her life, as you said. Ayewa.
I'm not sure I understood your last sentence.
Okay,
Could you repeat that?
Yes, sure. So growing up and living in Europe, racism and discrimination were a constant battle in your life, forcing you to always be hyper alert and excessively self-conscious.
Exactly.
Yeah. Perfect. So our next panelist is Danny Paul. So Danny was born in Zimbabwe. Hi, Danny.
Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Danny was born in 1992 in Zimbabwe, but he actually grew up in Nigeria, where he fled to Libya at the young age of 14. So you lived in Libya for a year, and as a Black person, and I think, well, actually for the other Black person as well, as you said, you were treated as nothing less than slave, and you were literally called slave. Yeah. Okay. And during your stay in Libya, you lived in different ghettos with other Black people, as they were forced to live separately from the general society. And the only contact you had with Libyans was only when you had to work in the fields, farms, and in the building constructions. And apart from being confined to living segregated, each time you went out either to get food or to work or to get to the market, you had to be very vigilant, keeping an eye on every moving vehicle because you had a chance of getting arrested and even imprisoned without being charged.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so you said being a Black was actually sufficient to get incarcerated.
Sure.
And so you have to sleep and live in constant fear as they actually broke into the ghettos and make arrests at night. And you would find this to be the case for every Black migrant who lived in Libya. And Danny, you said, and I quote, I think the reason for this is a result of an extreme ignorance.
Sure.
And Danny actually currently you live in Italy, and where racism is actually a primary issue, as it is politically, socially, and economically. And I think today you would have an insight on that part.
Sure.
So welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Our last panelist, Isaac. Hi, Isaac.
Hey, how you doing?
We're good. Isaac Asimwe is originally from Uganda, but he currently lives in Beijing. And Isaac, in Uganda, you have always been drawn to social activism and social work related to activities like working with vulnerable communities, equipping them with skills for economic empowerment. But however, since coming to Beijing, you said you have found yourself exposed to issues surrounding race and racial inequality, which has drawn you to activities like the annual Black Expo, as well as many other activities specifically catered to and aim to empower the Black community in China. We're also happy to have you today. We're actually very happy to have someone in Beijing in China. So thank you for joining us.
I'm glad to be part of this exchange.
So guys, I will start with one, let's say, icebreaker question, where I will ask you if you could start this panel by telling us about your own relationship with racism and how it manifests itself into the area that you live in. And I'm gonna start by Jared.
Okay. For me, I think racism is the same as it is across the nation, a cold and quiet thing. There aren't as many people that are overtly racist, at least there wasn't until this Trump regime came into play. And I think we need to look at that from the top all the way to the bottom, to the people in the government mansions. But I think that's because that's just not how racism operates anymore. It kind of ushers a person of color through life, and if we don't push against it, we end up where it wants us. I think racism manifests itself in resegregation, test scores, the part on the Scantron that asks you, are you a non-Hispanic white? Like, what even is that? It's censuses, metal detectors in schools, the constant defunding of public education. I mean, not getting jobs, differences in pay. I think it's all of those things. And if you ask me, in Mississippi, it's even colder and quieter. Mm-hmm. I think that I've been in classrooms where white people tell a different story of what it means to be from Mississippi. For them, it's those really nice shirts that say things like "I love sweet tea" and thong sandals, and that the Confederate flag is heritage, not hate. When in reality, there are other races here who don't share that experience. So, I think, like I said, I think it's very cold and quiet, but very effective.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Jared. Santi, you also live in Mississippi. Maybe you do have an insight on that as well. How does racism manifest itself in the area that you live in?
I think Jared spoke to it. It's very quiet and cold. And for me, I work in the public health field. And so that is an issue. Racism is an issue in the public health field. And if you haven't read the Medical Apartheid, that is an amazing book. I mean, you will get chills all over your body reading that book. But that just something that has played out throughout my life as far as seeing how public health plays a role. And so I always tell people, when you look in your communities, is it livable, bikeable, walkable? And if it's not, that plays a role. So I always try to tie in public health and community development. And you'll hear all these stories from the Tuskegee Airmen. You hear about that story. Well, you also hear about, birth control was first tried on African-American women. And then you hear about surgeries was done first on African-American women. So we see that racism here in Mississippi is very quiet. We had some amazing protests that happened across the state. But the question now is, how do we break down those structures? And so it's going to take more than just protesting. And I think people are wanting to see what is next. And so I'm glad to be a part of this panel, and I'm just excited to see where we take things to the next level. And another great book that I want to mention to you guys is The Algorithms of Oppression. It's amazing what you look at on Google, and you will find, Black women are lazy, Black women are angry, Black women are loud, or Black men. And so you kind of find out how those algorithms of oppression kind of plays into racism throughout our structures. So if you don't dismantle those structures, and like Jared said, from the top down, you're going to have a huge problem. And we're seeing that even now with COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Santi. Celinda, in New Mexico, how does racism manifest itself?
Yeah, so I want to be deliberate in calling out what race is, right? Race is a social construct that was created by imperialism as a tool of oppression, to justify our slavery, our enslavement, and call us less than human. And so I think we have to always acknowledge that race is a social construct, although so present and has been used as a tool since the beginning of imperialism. We have to acknowledge it in our everyday lives in all of these different intersections. But it absolutely has been used, particularly in the United States, to uphold racial capitalism because they profit from our bodies. And so the concept of racism is a tool of oppression that's used to uphold racial capitalism. And I think that it's important for us to call these systems what they are and really ground in what is the truth about it, because the rhetoric has been spun so much to try to convince us that it's something different than what it actually is. It's a tool of imperialism. And we see it appear every day in our people being captured by police who are just nothing more than modern day slave catchers and taking us into slavery, into the prison industrial complex, where there's 2.3 million bodies behind the walls in the United States. And this happens in my neighborhood every day. And so for me, it's always been present. It has always been present for our entire existence. And though we continue to resist it.
Thank you so much, Celinda. And I think we're actually going to come back to that question of how systemic racism affects people in the United States. And I think you will have a lot to say about that because you were always on the ground, and I think Santi as well. But I want to ask Ayoa, you're actually in Italy, but if you want to talk in Lisbon, how racism manifests itself, can you tell us?
Well, in Portugal, I think both countries, at the end of the day, it's all the same thing. And it's probably the same as throughout many countries, especially countries like in the Western country, where it's not socially acceptable to be racist. And like, in the sense that there is like some politically correctness about it.
Okay. That's interesting.
So because of that, I go with what Jared said about being very silent.
Okay.
So it's very like, people like, sometimes it's just about not saying things into your face, but acting a certain way. And it's even worse in that case, because for you as a person, it gets very difficult to really point out the problem, even if it's there.
It's sanitized, right? They don't need to be overt because the system's a well-oiled machine.
Exactly.
It's like, I think Reagan's political advisor, I don't know if Celinda can help me be sure, but he was like, at first you're saying nigger, 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 right? But then you start talking about busing and integration and things that, covertly hurt Black people and brown people and poor white people. And you're getting the result without having to be overt, all right? So why do it?
Yeah. So that's my opinion on it. Otherwise, I think the difference, it's very little. It's very very delicate. I think it's something regarding both cultures that are slightly different. I think in Italy, like personally, I think that there is more of an issue in Italy than there was in Portugal. Even if it's just for the fact that in Portugal, there were many African people coming from different ex-colonies. And I feel like that's like sort of might have been a factor who helped people like at least have a touch or a first touch with Black people. But in Italy, you don't have that, like you don't really have strong ex-colonies coming to Italy and So I feel like there is really no knowledge about Black people history in Italy. So I really feel like there is an even more of a distancing of an othering that really brings that really strong aggressive reaction, really like just someone looking at you in the street and just having this sort of very strong feeling towards you, and very minimizing you from what they saw or all the prejudice that they have or whatever they saw on TV, especially considering the actual political situation in Italy. So it's really, I feel like it's slightly stronger, but only because there haven't been much contact between Italian people and Black people or Black communities, say.
That's very interesting, and thank you. And I think Dan, actually, I'm gonna go to you because Dan would have a lot to say. You live in Italy. You've been living in Italy for a while now.
For 11 years.
For 11 years.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how it is being a Black person in Italy?
Well, based on my own personal experiences with racism, I'm really inclined to believe, not believe, I'm very sure that in Italy, the ignorance is above the real. And for example, Black people here, even if you have jobs, as in if they have jobs, but they're employed, some of them are employed, but maybe they refuse to rent them houses, and just because they are Blacks. And I personally have changed, maybe I've done something like 20 jobs, 20 different jobs, just because of the way I've been treated during the time that I'm working in the jobs. Because being Black in Italy is like you are being as in profiled, you know, and uh, they see you as inferior to them, even if you have the same skills. Like I've worked like in a salon, in a hairdressing salon, because as a hairstylist, and I went to hairstylist school, and everything had the same qualifications with my fellow colleagues. But I found out that they wanted to pay me, and they did pay me less than they paid others. So when I tried to bring the matter up, and they were being like, "Yeah, you're not Italian. You know, it's not just because I don't have the skill, it's just because I'm not white. You know." And it's really lame. It's really lame. The situation here in Italy is very difficult, and also being a Black person, I personally also, for example, if you're at the bus, maybe at the bus stop, you want to take the bus, and if you are alone at the bus stop, it happened to me personally, you risk not taking the bus. Because here in Italy, it's not just like the bus will come and stop, just like that. No, you have to wave at the bus, say, stop, and make a sign. So the bus will stop. And most times, I find myself, I have to check for other bus stops where there are whites. If I don't do it, that means I will leave the bus, because the bus driver can come and just blow off and act as if he didn't see you. And also, if you are able to make it take the bus, and you find out that when you sit down, sometimes I find myself as in, like people Italians, white people standing up and maybe moving away from where you are, and you find yourself alone, and empty seats, nobody sitting on the seats, and they prefer standing. So this makes you feel, you start asking yourself, where am I? You know what I mean? And where am I? And here, now I'm going to school, and I'm finishing my high school because I dropped out for various reasons. And in my class, I found out that students, they have no idea of Africa. No. As in, when I asked them because it happened that we had a history lesson, and I asked, after we talked about the triangular slave trade, and the impression the teacher gave them was very wrong. As in they see Africans as only slaves, as in that is where our history started. You know what I mean? And after the class, students asked me, and I said, you're from Africa, and I'm not trying to maybe put myself right, and I'm bright in school, you know, and they were asking me, how do you get all these knowledges, and you know what I mean? I said, it's not because of here, and I didn't learn all these things here in Italy. I learned it from Africa, and they'll be like, so you mean there are university, there are colleges in Africa, there are schools in Africa, and stuff like that. Okay, I asked him, what do you think? How is Africa? And what do you think somebody is? How is he in Africa? How do you think Africans are? And he be like, maybe huts, they have huts, they live in bushes, you know what I mean? In his mind eye, I can 100% perceive and tell that only what you see is maybe a man with a spear running after a lion. You know, yeah, that is what they think of Africans, because they have no idea about us. Yeah, and the problem is the Italians, just as I'm sorry, sister, the sister from that lived in Portugal, what's your name?
Iowa.
Iowa, yeah. Prejudice is very common in Italy, you know?
It is,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, when they see you, and
I think from all the other countries I've been in Europe, I feel like Italy is the one giving me a harder time, especially regarding, because there's the problem, like, of course, that there is racism everywhere, but you always grow up already being black, you sort of grow up accepting it. But I've always, like in Portugal, I've always feel like, okay, there are rules, there are social rules. I know my rights. I know like that. I'm sure that people, there are limits to what people can do. They can be like aggressive. They can be cold. They can ignore me as a way of being racist. But here, I feel like people really like they sort of just feel like they can do whatever they want because you're black, and they can get away with.
Yeah. And this is because their political structure. And in Italy, you find out that there are 600,000 illegal immigrants. They are illegal. They don't have papers to stay in the country. And these illegal immigrants, they end up being exploited. You know, since they don't have documents, they don't have papers. So their boss, I call it boss because I would have said their employer, but they are not being treated like I'm saying they, but we, because I am one of them. I definitely have to affirm it here, and because I'm living here for 16 years, so I've been exploited different times, and times to that number in every way. If you leave a job, you go find another, you're made in the same situation. So since the government don't give this they don't give most of us documents, so we end up in the hands of these exploiters, saying, okay, you don't have documents, so we can't make a working contract for you. So you can be regularized. So they don't have a way, and these exploiters don't pay taxes to the Italian government. You know, so this becomes a problem both for the government and you as a person, and they make you, they force you to live in an unpleasant way. Yeah, you just feel like, you know, bad being black. I just think.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I disappeared for a while. I'm back now, and I want to give Isaac. I want to hear you because right now you're in Beijing. You're in China. And how does racism manifest itself in China?
To be honest, it's quite disturbing because I had actually written down a few things here, and it's quite disturbing to hear the similarities between my experience and Danny's experience. It's crazy because like things like something as simple as waving a taxi down. That has happened so many times, and just there was a point where I just didn't feel like taking. I didn't feel like taking the bus. I didn't feel like taking the subway because for me, every time I took the subway or the bus, I would tell my friends, "Oh, this is my social experiment," because I would sit and then wait to see if there's a one person brave enough to come and sit next to me because they would rather stand for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I mean, I don't mind the extra stress, but I'm like, yeah, but it's in those. The thing is, it's not as in your face, probably, but they will never let you forget that you're different. They will never let you forget, even for 1 second, feel like you fit in, because there's a word for black person. It's Heiran in Chinese, and from the kindergarten kid to the 8-year-old granny, you just walking on the street and all you hear is hair and hair and hair. And it's just like a song. So you, even the moment you start to feel comfortable, then it's all these things. So at some point you just choose to, find people that look like you and just hang out in your own community. Which is sad because
I've heard that word, teaching, in the class session I was telling you about, and I had to go and Google it. I was like, why am I hearing this? And then they'll laugh at the slides that have black people on it, and I was trying to figure out, like the correlation. So I just wanted to speak to that, man. I've heard that word. That's crazy.
Yeah, and the longer I've lived here, because in the beginning, the first few months that I was here, like some of these things don't bother you when you cannot speak the language because you don't actually know what they're saying. But after 5 years, because I've been here for 5 years, and I would like to think I'm fairly good at the language, and you can hear everything they say. So it becomes worse, and like now you're on the subway, you just want to drown it out, and you have to listen to music or something because you can hear everything. And that is like, if you're asking me about my experience, it's daily, it's in your face. They don't let you forget it. That's the experience.
Thank you very much. And I think we are actually going to, because that was a question that was raised and a lot of people talked about it. So I think it's important that we talked about the economical issue that comes with systemic racism. And we can actually start in the US and ask the question of how government benefit from systemic racism, because they do, and Selena, you said it, they do benefit from that. But people don't know that because we never ask that question. So Santi, if you're okay, I would like to start with you. How do you think government benefits from systemic racism?
I don't even know where to begin. And I work for a university that's predominantly white, and so it's a predominantly white institution. And so when you look at the structure of the government just in general, and you look at just kind of where they say, oh, we've come a long way, but we really haven't because we're still struggling with the current structures at this moment. So the government really benefits from all the things that we actually do. Celinda, she made a great point about what is race, and race factors into everything. So when I think about working at a predominantly white institution, I'm the tokenism. I'm the one that kind of stands out, and I'm the one that was selected to be the Black woman to be on the committee and do this. So they really benefit from everything that we do, from the ideas, from the creativity, from the innovation, from everything that we do. And we don't have a seat at the table. Some days we have a seat at the table, we don't have a voice. And so what we have to start doing is just stop putting people in these places and they don't have a voice. And it was funny because Jared and I was laughing. We was like, we never thought that we would be on this panel at this moment, and we went to school together. And we've just kind of seen how those different structures has kind of shaped who we are and how that has kind of really just played a role in our lives. And so when you look at our government and you look at who is elected and you look at who's not elected and you even look at the local government. And so often we tell people to vote, 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 but that's not it. What else are we doing on the front lines in these communities? You know, I can run for local government, but what else am I doing in these communities? And so it's very important for us to understand those structures that are already there. It's like we continue to play this game and people, I mean, and honestly, white people are asking, what can I do? What can I learn? And I'm thinking, okay, Black people are tired. You should have been learning a long time ago. You should have understood that there was, you know, institutional racism. You should have understood that there is structural concepts to this, and just seeing how all of that kind of trickles down throughout our communities, especially in Mississippi. And, you know, Jared spoke to it. It's very quiet here. It's very cold. And I've had to delete some people off social media because they've said some things already throughout the current situation that we're in. And then I also see people who are not speaking out about things that they know that was going on. So you see how the government plays. You see, he's not my president, but he's somebody's president. You see how he continues to play in that role of just things that are going on. And you just see how that kind of trickles down. And we're not a blue state, we're a red state. And most of the southern states are red. So that kind of tells you how the government actually operates in these states. And I know we had some great questions on kind of like even our amendments, when you just look at the government and how they kind of transpires throughout what's going on and affecting our Black and brown people. And so I'm just definitely curious what else may be said throughout this conversation, but we have got to learn that democracy is not here right now. And we have been fighting for a long time, and I don't know if this is our breakthrough, as they say. I don't know if it's going to be a huge transition that we are about to experience, but we got to keep our foot on the gas to keep going.
You're absolutely right. And I see Jared, Akili, you've been nodding and you've been taking the book. So I have a feeling that you do have something to say about it. And I want to, and I want to let you talk.
Okay. I think that, I mean, all of those are extremely valid points. I think when I was looking at these questions, I wanted to give something that I don't think we're gonna, that we haven't necessarily talked about or heard. And I kind of want to kind of leave the prison industrial complex open for Celinda, because I know she's going to know the ins and outs of it. But I think that that's definitely a piece, a way that they capitalize off our bodies, is the school to prison pipeline and the prison industrial construct and the ways in which the corporations are benefiting from that, right? So as a teacher, you know, they're pushing these state tests. And as someone who has access to information, which is another thing that I'm going to talk about, but they push these state tests. And I know that on the other side of that third grade reading gate is them using those statistics to tell how many Black and brown kids are going to be in the prison system, right? And so being constantly aware of that, knowing that they're just waiting on these kids to slip up so that they can go into prisons and work, right? Whether it's for free or for a cigarette, you know, it's still slave labor, right? So that's one piece that like I said, I want to let her kind of like kill. But I think access to information is important. We generally don't have access to information, whether it's regarding wealth building, true education, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit later, and why things are happening, right? So me and Celinda were talking earlier about COVID-19 and the crash in the stock market, and just how all these corporations and all of these CEOs were so aware of this coming, right? So they knew that there was an opportunity for them to transfer even more wealth into the ruling class's pockets. And we were just buying tissue. You know, all these stocks are on sale and we're just buying tissue. And I think that's because we aren't consistently preparing ourselves for things that we know are going to affect us more than they affect everybody else in America. The other thing that I think is interesting to what's happening right now in contemporary America is how trendy being black is right now, right? Like Santi was saying, everybody, all the white people are like, what can we do? And some of it's genuine, right? And some of it's for an Instagram post. And I think that we can tell who's genuine and who's not. But I think these corporations are highly aware that we represent, I think, roughly 3.9 trillion unfocused, unguided, and non-exclusive dollars, right? We represent that. And so right now you're seeing everywhere. I mean, you can't cut on the video game without it saying Black Lives Matter. You can't, they're painting streets, you know, and that's great. That's awareness. All publicity is good publicity. But I think that we need to be highly aware that we need to control the narrative. And Celinda spoke to that when we were talking earlier, that, you know, you got people coming to these protests, derailing them and turning them into something that the organizers don't want. And so I think we need to be very particular in the way that we deal with these companies. I think, okay, if you want to access that, if you want to say Black Lives Matter, you want to tell us how you're standing with us, then we need some money for bail, for bailing out these organizers. We need support when it comes to lobbying these policymakers. We need, you know, lawyers on the ground, right? I just think that we need to be looking at ways that we can leverage this new support that we're seeing everywhere, because they're going to leverage us. You know, America's no stranger to making money off Black and brown bodies. They're no stranger to making money off of the incorrect ideologies of poor white people who are kind of getting their information from, you know, media and not a detailed understanding of what race looks like. So, you know, for those things, I think white fragility, to kind of understand how they're getting their information. The new Jim Crow will give you a really, really, really good understanding of the prison industrial complex. And if you want to go even deeper, slavery by another name, which I was thinking about when they were telling me, when the Africans were talking about their experience with papers, with their, you know, immigrant papers. You know, they did that same thing here right after Reconstruction, when they were prepping themselves for new Jim Crow with us. If you didn't have your papers, then you were caught by the slave catchers, which eventually turned into the police officers, right? So I think that access to that information and understanding why these systems are what they are and that it's not broken, it's operating how it should, is very important. I think this is another good one to understanding how the institutions came to be and why they are the way that they are. This is Stony the Road, Reconstruction on White Supremacy and the Rise of Jim Crow.
Thank you so much, Jared. I feel like we are going to have a list of books once this is over, and I'm actually going to ask you to post them later, for sure. But Celinda, I want to hear you on that, because you are actually on the, what do you think? How do you think the government, sorry, to ask everyone who's not on the panel to mute themselves so we can hear each other. Government benefits from systemic racism. If you have something to add to what Jared said, what Sanchi said as well.
Yeah, so it cut out just a little bit, but I think I heard what you were asking, or what the prompt question was. And so when we talk about the economic structure of the United States, it's surrounded by imperialism and racial capitalism, and that's the foundation of this country. It started with genocide and slavery, and so it is the literal looting and stealing of bodies and land for profit. And so the economic structure has not really changed in the United States, although it has sophisticated itself and manifested itself into something that they want to rename to try to come to society, a colonized society. That this is justifiable. And so when we approach this system, we have to do things with a both and approach. So I heard Santi talking about the political structure. Now, this political structure was never intended for us. It was intended for white men landowners at the foundation of it. So the wealthy and white male, cis male. And the structure was never for us. Therefore, it's a false narrative to believe that we could assimilate into a system that was never designed for us. But I also argue that we should do our work with a both and approach, because I believe that we can't ignore the system, right? And as we work to dismantle it, we should be still infiltrating that system at every chance we get to bring relief to our people. And knowing all the time that the system must be dismantled because it was never designed for us. Because poverty is part of that, the design of that system. And when Jared talked about the school to prison pipeline and all of these systems, they are all by design to uphold the system of slavery, which is still rampant in the United States. And so this is how they profit from our bodies. And so this has much to do with classism as it does racism. Racism is just a tool of that structure. But really what we're talking about is we are talking about the bourgeois class, the imperialist, the capitalist society. Because Black capitalists are just as dangerous for us as white capitalists are. And so we have to acknowledge that in our work. And so our economic freedom is not possible until racial capitalism is dismantled, not just in the United States, but globally, because that is the tool of oppression. And so I'm not suggesting that I want people to all be poor or anything like that. I want all people should have access to the things that we need to exist in the society. And so food, clothing, shelter, transportation, healthcare, these are all things that are basic human rights. And that's what we are fighting for. We are fighting for our right to existence in an economic structure. And so I think that it's important for us to be grounded and be able to call these systems what they are. They try to talk to us about Wall Street, or they rename prison industrial complex, or they rename all these things are just rhetoric for what these systems actually are at the foundation. And that is racial capitalism and these systems, tools of oppression, which is racism and slavery and Jim Crow law. And we have to call these things what they are. And so our economic liberation is impossible until these systems are dismantled.
Thank you so much. This is something we actually need to remember. It takes note. People have been asking if we have question and answers. I know a lot of you want to put down. I see that you were smiling. Question to Italy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Perfect. So Danny, how do you think the government in Italy benefit from systemic racism?
Yeah, well, here in Italy, we have the major political parties, the left wing, let's say the center left, they say, okay, the center left, the right, the center right, and the left wing. Okay, it happened that what they do is they kind of use, exploit the presence of Black people, migrants, in their campaigns, in their political campaigns, maybe, for example, I'll make an example because it happened recently. In 2016, there was a campaign in Italy, and the center-right wing won, and they won, but they didn't have the majority, all the votes they needed to be in power. So they merged with another political party that is I think the center left, so they merged together and went to power. So when they went to power, and they said because the prime minister of Italy was from the center right, but I think he's right. My perception and what he says verbally, publicly, is just right wing. Okay, so like fascism, he practices fascism. It's clear. So he issued a decree that because before 2016, any immigrants that comes to Italy would have been able to seek for political asylum. And in some cases, there are problems that bring people here, most black immigrants, isn't maybe political cases, okay? Maybe just economical problems. So they have to leave their home country and past some bad experiences. I don't know, crossing the Sahara Desert. That most immigrants, you find that to be the case of most people here in Italy. That they have to cross the Sahara Desert and cross the Mediterranean Sea and gets to Italy. Maybe in my case, my journey was almost like a year and some months. Just because I left when I was 14 and I arrived in Italy when I was 16 years old. So he issued a decree that immigrants, he called it economical immigrants, as in those people that has economic problem that comes to Italy, and they won't be able to have access to, they call it humanitarian, they call it uh, humanitarian permit of stay in Italy, okay? Those people that doesn't have political issues in their country. So before then, they were able to have permits to stay in Italy. And after he issued this decree, unfortunately, he abolished that possibility for those immigrants. So that is why many immigrants that had permits to stay regularly in Italy lost their documents, they lost their papers, and they lost their rights just because of the law he made. And then when he was making campaign, since most Italians, they are racists, so they supported him. They voted for him because they don't like immigrants. That is the reason why he had most of the votes to be on power. Okay, and during this, I think in 2018, they broke. He how is it? He resigned because the other political party wasn't agreeable with all his agendas. So because of this, they broke off, and the left wing came into power and merged with the other left wing that was with the right wing before. I don't know if you're getting me.
Mm-hmm.
Am I clear?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so. I think I'm getting there. But only because I live here too, so I think I have more insights on it.
Yeah, definitely. So now the left wing is in power, but the fact is that, and they don't like the agenda the leader, the prime minister from the right wing, the decree he issued. But the fact is that they still adopt those laws. As in, they didn't abolish the law that the guy they said they don't like issued, and they are working with these laws because those conditions are still in Italy. The people without that has economic problem don't have the possibility to have documents and papers and the right to stay in Italy. But that's the way they exploit the presence of migrants here in Italy. So I think she's off. Well, yeah, that is it. And we made a protest about this. That was on Saturday, last Saturday, and here in Italy. We talked about what we immigrants and how we would like to help, as in help, as a help, just like that. And but here, protest in Italy doesn't have any cause. As in, it's not, as in, we really don't have, we're not rooted. We're not rooted. We're not, as in, like, if you find immigrants here in Italy, I have to say the truth. You find them all in the farm, working in the farm, or you find them washing dishes in the restaurant. So this is the level we are here in Italy. Most immigrants, you find very few in maybe high places. So hi, I just say hi because I think you guys in the United States or in China, wherever you are, if you watch Italian channels, the television, I don't think you find a black man in the television. No, you can't find no black man in you can't go through all the Italian channels. You can't find no black man in television, and we are in 2020. So this is the situation here.
That's crazy. That is, that's crazy.
Yeah, there's no black person in the television in Italy. You can find no black one. No. You find us out. You can find us in the farm, working. Just like when America, when there was slavery in the United States, that you find black people in the farm, and yeah, in Italy it's the same thing, and we've got many black people here, and probably it would have been, I think it would have been riches for Italy, and that is the why Italian economy is just the way it is, because they don't know. Yeah,
that great area when we were sharecroppers and all of this in between, right after slavery, and there's this push during Reconstruction where we do get into like politics, etc., and then they immediately were like, oh hell no. Yeah. Not right now, not when we're, really starting this country, you won't do that. And so, you get the sharecropping history that people just really don't talk about. And that's why I went and got this book, to learn more about that little area, that time. But that's what that reminds me of when I'm hearing it. Yeah. It's crazy how similar all these struggles are, and how it's like they take the same steps, right?
The whole world learned. The whole world learned how to build an empire based off of what they did in the United States on this continent, on this land. All of the colonizers learned that this is the structure, right? They wrote a program, and they're all following that program.
And even in the Italian language, sometimes it's wrong to say. Sometimes maybe when they're talking, they're having a conversation between them, and maybe one of them is trying to take advantage of the other. So they tell themselves, in Italian, they say, non è che hai trovato un negro. That is to say, I don't think you find a negro. You know what I mean? As in, among themselves, as in, these languages are being used in television, as in, it's like normally in the films, as in, for them it's like in the culture. This is normal. We can say it's not going to happen, and no one is coming to kind of tell us this is wrong to do. And they say in the front of you, you're a black man and you know the history. They know the history behind that word negro. So, but sometimes you find it in their language, and they use it always. So.
Guys, I hit Roland, and she said that she lost Wi-Fi. She wanted us to speak to this question about. Let me read it directly. It says the one about the 13th Amendment. I'm trying to get to it now. Here we go. I think.
It's the 13th Amendment in the U.S. served as legislation to abolish slavery. However, there is a loophole in that amendment. What is it, and should that amendment be repealed? So I think that's.
And it's directed at you, I believe, Celinda.
Yes, absolutely. So if folks haven't got to see it, it's worldwide on Netflix. There's a film that was brilliantly put together by Ava DuVernay, and and she presents that the truth about the 13th Amendment and what the 13th Amendment meant for the United States. And the 13th Amendment literally reads, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So essentially, you could remain a slave so long as you have been convicted of a crime in the United States. And this was a loophole that was intentionally negotiated with Lincoln during that period. A lot of folks don't know, but there was also an underground railroad that went into Mexico, and there was a big fight at the borders, and Lincoln was sending people to Mexico to try to stop that spring of Black people to Mexico, because Mexico had freed and ended slavery 80 years before the United States did. Vicente Guerrero led that revolution in Mexico. He was a Black Mexican, and he fought to end slavery.
Type that name in the chat too.
And so Lincoln, during this negotiation during the Civil War, had sent people to Mexico to try to stop the liberation of Black people and the flow going there, while they were actively negotiating how to uphold the systems of slavery in the United States. Lincoln actually never wanted to end slavery. Lincoln benefited from slavery and in fact owned slaves himself. And so he negotiated during the end of the Civil War to leave this loophole in, and therefore right immediately after 1865, well, right after this all came into place, during the Declaration of Independence, they immediately started to criminalize the Black communities that were recently freed, and then brought them in, and then sent them back literally in convict leasing to the plantations they had just been freed from. And so this country, although they were saying, oh, these people are free now, they were immediately criminalizing them for things like soliciting. And you could be put back into the criminal justice system, what they called it then, or the prison system, and then they would contract them through convict leasing back to the plantation owners they had just been freed from. So this story about freedom has never been real in the United States. Slavery has never ended in the United States. And what they did is they just created a loophole that actually made it possible for anybody convicted of a crime in the United States to be a slave. So
absolutely.
If you're poor and white, you can be a slave in this country now. And so it's important for us to continue to acknowledge these systems, because many lies were told to us during this time. There's a group called the Daughters of the South right after the Civil War, and they were the women of the Ku Klux Klan. And what they did is they organized to hijack the education system of the United States to instill a colonized philosophy into the education system. And Brian Stevenson has a great discussion about this. He said, we may have won the Civil War, but we did not win the narrative. They won the narrative. And they were able to continue today to have textbooks mass produced to our children that says Christopher Columbus was a hero, or that the Civil War was about states' rights. So it's filled with lies about the colonization of this country. And that's why our people are so colonized in the United States, and they believe the rhetoric that is told to us by this government and by the system that is oppressing us.
Okay. I think maybe a good segue now maybe would be, I guess, like to bounce back and forth between, us Americans and you people that have expatriated. So I see a question for Iowa. How is the situation of racism in Lisbon, and how does it manifest in schools, workplaces, etc.? How are Black lives different from born and raised Portuguese?
Well, basically, it's a daily struggle somehow. I think, of course, everyone makes you feel different all the time. Like I cannot say that there is one day that you can go through without having someone mistreating you. I would just say that there are, of course, very like different levels. So there are levels that you tolerate and you learn to tolerate on a daily basis, and then someday something like bigger will happen. But I think, and even on Portugal, many people say Portugal is not racist, because for me it's like a very nice racism. Let's say, like, it can be something very condescending. It can be something very like that. Growing up, it took me like a while to sometimes even realize that people being nice to me or trying to be nice to me ended up being racist. And I had to like learn how to second read things people were saying. Of course, that just will also have the disadvantage of you at the end growing up always very suspicious. So you never feel like you can fully trust people, or especially you can fully trust white Portuguese people, because you just grow up being used to the fact that there is always a trap. There is always something like what does this person wants for me, or why, like you always feel like, what are they going to tell me next? What are they going to think about me next? What will be the next attack or the next aggression? Or so it's, for me, it has been basically this. And you feel it in school, you feel it from teachers. I had a teacher once, like when I left the French school, I went to a Portuguese high school, and I was a new student. And I remember that I was like normally like a good student, and this teacher once just came to me, and she told me, because in her class I was always participative and she liked what I said, so she decided to go back and check my grades from the former school. And she came back to me and she told me something like, "Oh, Ayuwa, actually I've been checking your notes, and surprisingly you have good grades." And I said something like, "Oh yeah, sure, thank you." But like, I was so young and so naive, and like it took me like maybe 2 or 3 years later to realize, like, oh my gosh, she was not really like, that was not a compliment. Like, why would she be surprised by the fact that I had good grades? Like, why would that? And for me, that's one of the moments that was really, it's hard, because like you realize that is a teacher, that is someone that is teaching people that will become citizens. And so what is she exactly transmitting to those students, and what are they going to apply once they will become full citizens? And so you certainly, like, I at least end up having this very negative feeling that it will never really change, that somehow like there is like, it feels like there is no way, there is just a wall, like maybe there is, like you will go far, but there will always be this wall. Because when I have a teacher, like a literature teacher, which for me is someone that read a lot, of course that doesn't mean anything at the end of the day, but like that read a lot, that should know a lot, and that just said that to me like that, it's very, no words, like it's surprising, it's shocking, it's and so like you just hear so much, so many things, like the example Danny Paul was just saying about the little proverbs, like oh, because like when you are at a job and someone has to work a lot, and suddenly they say, oh, but because they must think that I'm black, and you're like, okay, what is that supposed to mean? Or people just say things to you, and then they are like, come on, don't take it badly, you know, we are just kidding. And it's
don't pull
so
the race card. Yeah, we call those in my schooling, we call them microaggressions. And I think over time, and that those are so damaging. I think that they, you know, you're pretty for a black girl, or you're not like those black people, you're cool, or, you know, And
I think the best one that I've heard was like two best ones. Where one was, "Oh, poor thing, she's black," or yeah.
oh my gosh.
It's not funny, but yeah, it's funny. Like sometimes I just laugh off of it because otherwise it's not possible. So you hear the poor thing, she's black, or this old lady that told me she looked at me and she said something like, "Oh, back in Lisbon near my house there is a black girl exactly like this one. Boss, she's black, but she's a very good person." And like,
yeah.
well, it's yeah, and that is I think there is a lot of things like that in the the Portuguese culture, and it's very hard because sometimes people really think they are being nice. Like, or the same thing, like with another old lady. I was in a Chinese store, and the lady was Chinese, and this lady was just telling the Chinese lady, "Oh, because I've heard that you guys are good people." Like, what does that even mean? That she heard that they are good people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of things like that that people really think they are being nice and they're saying something nice, and it's also something, actually, if all of you have some advice, because it's something that I would like to even take the opportunity to start a conversation, but you don't really know how to do it since the person thinks they are being nice. And of course, that telling someone they are being racist is never really something nice. So I always feel in the position like, how do I tell you that you are being racist without feeling like I'm attacking you and you feeling like you were just being nice and now you're being attacked for it? So
I think
if anyone has any advice.
Yeah, and I want to open that up to everybody. But I think like something that I started doing recently, probably like a year ago, is not. I mean, we don't owe them. We don't owe them the ability to exit those uncomfortable conversations, right? Because that's what they're trying to do. And it talks about that in White Fragility. You know, those are catchphrases that they've trained themselves over time to say so that they can exit the uncomfortable conversation that needs to be had about race, right? Like, you don't get to, and the other thing is they're having those conversations, we're just not there, right? That's just like she told you, I heard, but they're nice people. You know, where did that conversation take place where you guys had a coalition and you came together and you voted? Iowa and her family have now been deemed nice black people. We will treat them as such, you know. And I think we got to stop allowing them to exit. We don't owe them that. We have to, and I think that is a piece, an unspoken piece that has happened throughout history. We are very welcoming, and we don't want to offend, I think, naturally.
It's the protecting of white feelings, of white fragility. We have been to protect whiteness.
This is true. This is true. We are too emotional, maybe, and we feel maybe the pain of other people. So we know the right thing to say. I think most Africans, we know the right thing to say. We know how to say, but we feel, why am I going to hurt this person? You know, and you know they are fragile. I know they are fragile. Okay, so and, you know, so they will feel somehow attacked and ashamed at the same time, and you know what I mean. So we try to not do to them what they do to us. That's just, I think that's what the situation is.
Man, that's Anybody else before we move to the next one? Okay, let's see.
Isaac,
I think. Go ahead.
I'd like to hear Isaac and how this plays out in China.
Isaac?
Yeah, most. Yeah, he's a mute.
Sorry about that. I was saying it's kind of different here because I don't know if you know about the makeup of the society here. It's very polarized in the sense that there's 56 ethnic groups, but the biggest one is the Han, and they make up 91.5% of the population. So it's basically one people that look the same, that speak the same, and when you as a foreigner coming into this society, anything that you deem as inappropriate, they have told themselves to repeat this line. They've said it over and over that they now believe that it's okay, because anything they do, the phrase they will always say is, "Oh, but we're all Han. We don't know what racism is. We're all the same." And I'm like, but you do have the 1% of your population that nobody ever hears about, which is a topic for another day. But like, it is honestly like, to go back to the earlier question about like how the government benefits, if I may go back to that, how the government
Absolutely.
benefits from that.
Absolutely.
Personally, I think here it's not a direct, there's no direct benefit, if I may say, because like I said, the whole society is, for instance, if I were to estimate, I would say there's probably not more than 2, 3 million, 4 million at most foreigners here out of the billions of people. So for them, it's nothing, it's not something that they've been forced to deal with. So there's no political will to take care of it. And a few months ago when the whole, I don't know if you guys heard about what was going on with the African population in Guangzhou in southern China, where they were being profiled and being forced into quarantine for the coronavirus and all that. And that was the first time that the authorities couldn't sweep it under the rug, and they were forced to address it for the first time, because the media ran with it and people actually like got involved, like and that was a beautiful thing, because there was a lot of people in the States and all over that were actually trying to highlight what's going on.
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting thing to see how they handled it. But of course, they're so confident in their position that their own people are not going to stand up and demand any change. So I mean, it's a very complicated situation here. It's a case of learning to live with it, I guess, because most Chinese cities are they have a feeling of transition. So most foreigners will be here for 5 years, 3 years. So no one feels vested enough to go out of their way to actually change the situation. No, there are no lasting movements here, or it's just something will spark a catalyst, and there will be a temporal movement for like maybe a few weeks, and people will come together and have discussions and things like that. But then after that, people just go back to their job, and you have to go back to the same job where you. So one of can I just say this one last thing?
Yeah, man, go ahead.
Something small. There was when I first came here. There's if you know anyone that has been to China, especially Beijing, there's a phrase that everyone that lives here knows it, and it's kind of code. They will in the teaching community, like a lot of people are English teachers, and they will say native speakers. So native speaker is code for you are a white person from Canada, the US, Australia, and get this South Africa, but you have to be white.
The white Africans, which is a whole.
And so this is me coming to China. I had my certification to teach English. I was a literature major for 6 years. I come from a native English-speaking country, so I was so sure that I was able to teach. And then I had a few interviews. You can gauge the body language and reaction and everything. And at this point, because I was so optimistic, I didn't do my background work to ask people that I'd tried to get into the field. I was just so sure, I could get it. And you go for the first thing, and then they're like, yeah, we'll call you. And then I just gave up at some point. And then after I think it was a year later, I tried to get in because a friend of mine told me, oh, these people actually don't care, so you can come in. I did an interview on phone. It was beautiful. They told me, when can you start? We need you to start immediately. They were really, really nice and warm. And then I get there the next day.
Show a black.
And the owner of the school sees me. And then she's like, can you give me a minute? And then she consults a friend.
We didn't know you were black. Oh.
Exactly. So the energy went from when can you start to you know what, the parents might the parents, they always blame the parents. They're like, parents decided to go a different direction, but we'll call you, just leave your number here. So yeah, it is crazy. It's those that for me is it's the one way that can actually affect you. Of course, all the other ways affect you, not getting into a restaurant and they tell you there are no tables, and then boom, some other people are able to get, those are things. But for me, that is one thing that affects people. It affects their livelihoods directly. So that is effective racism that actually affects your ability to make money. All the other things might affect your life and your ability to be comfortable in society, but this actually goes a step further in affecting your ability to make money. So yeah, I just want to highlight that.
Roland, are you back?
Yeah. You guys see me?
Yeah, it'll be $10,000 for my moderator services. I'll send you a invoice from a Black Man Reading at blackmanreading.com. All right?
Perfect. So if that happens, keep going with the panel. Actually, we do have a lot of problems. It's not just me. So we have problems with electricity and also Wi-Fi in general. So I'm using my data right now, and it's not even.
I was trying to say your audio is a little off too.
Yeah, that's what.
Well, if you want, I can keep going. I have a mental lineup of the questions of how
I did not expect that because they didn't tell me. We didn't know.
You said you can support, Celinda?
I can support also. I have the outline of questions here.
I wanted to do the question for you, Celinda, about the situation with your husband. And then after that, I was going to do Isaac with the literature. And then after that, that's as far as my organization had went.
Yes, so as everyone can see, I have a mural behind me that says Free Clifton White. We're organizers for Black Lives and have been for many years. And my husband has, he's right now currently a political prisoner in the United States, in the state of New Mexico. We organized a solidarity action on Thursday, the 28th, in solidarity with Minneapolis. And the end of that action because police really didn't. We were deep. We were thousands deep in the hundreds and up to 1,000 deep in the streets in our neighborhood, and we organized it in our neighborhood intentionally. And the police really didn't offer us during the protest. But 4 young people who were leaving the protest, the police attacked them down the road. 2 Chicano boys and black boys, and they're 2 16 to 18-year-olds. Some girls came over to us and said the police were down the road and that they had the boys on the ground with AKs in their faces. So we organized to go down there. And when we arrived at the scene, and anybody can go on look and see the live stream of this situation that occurred, we live streamed the whole thing. When we arrived, there were 12 unmarked police units. Behind them, all of the officers were dressed in war fatigues with AKs. There was a tank, the police tank, and this goes back to how our police departments have war weapons in the United States and are using them in our communities. So the tank was one of the boys, and they had all these police swarmed on them, and they were tussling with them in the street. So we activated our cop watch, and we started to film the scene and disrupt them. And they got the boys and they kidnapped them into the tank, and they rolled off, and the police helicopter was above us, and 2 busloads riot police walked up upon us. We had a standoff with the riot police, and they gassed us, and then they dispersed. When we look over and we're clearing the scene and helping the people who had been gassed, and one woman got hit in her belly and was burned by the tear gas that they threw at us. And so our street medics were assisting them. It's like a war zone, you know, and so we're helping the people, the casualties that had been harmed. And we look over and the boy's vehicle was left on the street by the police with the keys on the hood. So we knew we were gonna look for the children to make sure that they were safe, and we took possession of their property. My husband was driving the vehicle home, and the police blocked him in, and they stole the vehicle back from us, which in policing in the United States is not supposed to happen like this. They're not supposed to just hop in your car and drive off. There's a process and they did not. They stole the car back from us, and then they stole my husband's property, and then they released him because there was nothing he could be charged with. The next day, they tried to do a cover-up in a press conference. Our actions continued every day in New Mexico. Was shot with a rubber bullet by police in another standoff that we had with the police here on Sunday evening when we were protecting another group of young people who were in the streets. By Monday, all the time my family is being surveilled by undercover law enforcement. We are being stalked all day, every day, and they're harassing people who come to my home. They continue to attack us. The police helicopter was circling my house every day. Every day they were over my home. And by Monday, they surround us and they arrest my husband with no warrant. There was no warrant in the system when they arrested him. They couldn't even book him into the jail because there was no basis for the arrest. He was literally kidnapped from me. And those videos are all on my live stream as well. He is on an illegal parole sentence in the state of New Mexico, and that's what the weapon that they're using now, because he's state property in the states. And so the best way to break this down in layman's terms is he is a slave of New Mexico. He is state property, and the governor is the plantation owner. And our governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, is the only person who could free my husband right now. He has no rights to a court. He has no rights to legal counsel because he is a slave in the state. And so this call to action that we have had from my husband is to call Michelle Lujan Grisham, the governor, and encourage her to demand that she free him, because he's a political prisoner because he's retaliated against for organizing for the liberation of Black lives. And so this is what my family is going through now. And when we look at history, right, of the civil rights movement, of all of the movements of the shoulders that we stand on, all of them have been the same. These are the same tactics and structures that are when we look at the move, folks in Philadelphia in Philadelphia who are all taken. Ashanta Shakur still can't be in the United States. They just heightened the alert on the FBI watch list for her, for this system. You know, we look at what they did to Angela Davis. We look at Leonard Peltier is still in prison right now. Mumia is still in prison right now.
Yeah.
There are political prisoners across the United States who are serving life sentences in many cases because they were organizing for our liberation. This is a tool that this system has used consistently against us. So right now we're trying to free Clifton White, who organized for Black Lives in New Mexico and who subsequently was captured by slave catchers and taken back to the plantation.
And me and you dialogued about that. How I was in a holding cell and they were getting Mexican people and Black people on the same thing, right? Those same tools. Everybody was like, yeah, they caught me by the store, old fines or this or that, and it was just this recurring, revolving door of people who don't traditionally get this type of support. And I think that is so important because, and what was interesting is the Mexican people had already created a system to like circumvent, like being able to post bail for their friends who were getting arrested like that and other things. And I was like, it was so cool. Like they were like, oh, don't worry, they'll be out in a second. They already know what to do. And it's so upsetting that we even have to know what to do, or that we have to create these other systems. And so, infinite love to you, sister, for continuing to fight. We've talked about this, for continuing to fight. Infinite love for all women that are always on the front line. Like I said, when we had the other one, man, you guys are amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Let's see. Let me see where we are. Oh, we said we'd do maybe Isaac next, the question about literature. Do you want to ask that question, Celinda? Or I can.
I can actually continue, you guys, so you don't have
there
to
she
worry
go.
about that. Oh, but yeah, I'm right here.
Yay.
And there's hi, yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Hey guys, I'm probably gonna go through it again. Like the internet is really not working. But Celinda, after hearing you, thank you very much, and thank you for Jared for continuing the panel. There's a question I want to address because Celinda, you do have
$1
kids.
million.
What happened to? Sure, I don't have that money, but we'll see. So you do have kids, and what happened to your husband is something that I'm guessing is very traumatic for them. And I want to know, and that's a question I'm actually going to ask later because I know a few of you have kids, but how are they coping with this? How are you dealing with everything that's happening?
So, I often have always, I'm a prison abolitionist and I work with families who have prisoners all the time. And across the world, we work with people who are in prison in Palestine and in Sudan. And so, this is something this is global. And when somebody is taken behind the walls, when they are taken into prisons, the entire family is in prison. It's a false narrative to say that they are only punishing that person, that individual. We are all in prison when this happens. Our entire families are impacted. My children are doing cry-outs on social media to help free him, because children in the community who he's mentored are speaking out, because this is where work is, and we are here and we support our community. We do mutual aid projects and we do political education workshops and trainings, and the community home. And so people are used to being able to support with restorative justice, with mediating family violence, with being able to be fed and find food and support. And so for him to be taken this way has had an impact on the entire community. And so I just am so appreciative to the outpour of support that the community has given us and all of the love globally that we have received. And I think that us bringing this to light, you know, this is not a New Mexico, this is a New Mexico story, but this happens every day in our communities. And so we must all continue to be aligned and tell the truth about what these systems are and work to free all of our prisoners who are confined behind the walls.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to come back to that question again, but I want to ask Danny, is that something that also happened in Italy? When people are trying to fight for justice, do they get arrested? Do they get in prison? What is the situation?
Well, at the moment in Italy, it's not, as in, we don't have that kind of movement, you know, this is just the beginning. It's because of this George Floyd's assassination that led to protests that now we're becoming conscious and concerned, more concerned of what's happening to Black people. As in, we know already, but it's just because we haven't created this movement that I would say a threat, because I think what we're doing is right. You know what I mean? It's not a threat to no one. We are just trying to speak up for ourselves. And so we don't have no resistance. But the last test we made, because here in Italy, before you make a protest, you have to inform the security. The security, you have to tell them, I'm going to make a protest here. So they come. I think, because I wasn't the organizer, so who organized this was told he couldn't move to he was given a space where he could make the protest and couldn't be able to leave that area. You know, he was just given, just space, and that's it. That's the situation here.
So it's actually very limited. You don't really have a choice.
It's very, very limited, I have to say the truth. Because, as I mentioned before, earlier, we still don't have a strong movement here, and we are trying to create one. And I hope possibly we could.
I hope for it too, because I don't think a protest that can really be made. If you have a limited space and if you have to inform security of what is happening, then what's the goal of that protest?
It doesn't make no sense. That's the situation here. So you have to have permission to make a protest, and they'll tell you when, how, and where you're confined. You know what I mean? For the moment, because they know that we have no Black person in politics in Italy, and we have no one to speak for us. So I, as an ordinary immigrant, so I don't think I don't have that. Nobody is going to listen to me. So even because migration in Italy, Italy doesn't have a big history of migration. But Blacks just started coming here. I mean, 20 years ago, I think. So we are not still a majority. We are very minor. You know what I mean? And, for the moment, this is just we're starting out. You know, and we need this panel. We need you people, and this is the reason why we're here. And we have to create something of our own, and we have to do things the way we perceive is right for us. And if not, we're also limited, we're discriminated in that way, as an even, you know what I mean? So if I can't organize a protest and where I want, because they confine us to a park. So we have to stay in that park. Although there were many, you know what I like? I like the fact that there were many Italians. Yeah. They were Blacks, they were also Italians, so they need to hear what's our problem. They need to hear our complaints, and I feel most of them, if they're that intelligent, they will also go home and maybe kind of teach other people, and they'll educate their fellow citizens. By that way, probably there might be a change. There might.
We're hoping for a change. And I'm going to easily transition into education. But before I do that, I do want to ask a question. At the beginning, when we started the panel, you guys talked about how people usually ask you, like, how can I support this? What do I do? And so I want to know, do you think it's the responsibility of Black people to teach history, to teach, Black history of what is happening to, let's say, white people or people who are asking you those questions. And I want to start with Iowa. Are you here? Okay. Non-Black people. I like that.
Okay.
I would say non-Black people.
Well, this is a very, how can you say, it's a question that creates a dilemma for myself, because I strongly believe, like, maybe not educate, but I think race is a conversation that you always must have, and you have to keep on having. So whenever there is the opportunity, whenever I see that someone is genuinely interested, is a conversation that I like to have, even because I like to believe that people sometimes, maybe they are just ignorant and not so racist, or they just have a prejudice. And if you show them other way, and they are open enough, they will really listen and change their perspective, or really educate themselves. But for me, that there is a stop to that. Like, there are things that I don't feel like I even have to discuss with that person, or there are persons that after they will make a certain statement, I don't even feel like there is a possible education, or there is a possible conversation. So I feel like, yes, we should discuss, but not educate. Because I think if someone is genuinely interested in something, they will search to know. And we will always be open to provide, like, whatever extra explanation they need, or whatever extra detail. But I don't feel like I have to be the one actively seeking to educate someone in something they are not genuinely interested in. So I'm quite mitigated about that, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally understand. Having the burden of, having to teach history. And I think Jared and Isaac, you actually have, well, for you it's a passion, but, I think for some Black people, it is a burden to always have to say what's the right thing and what's not. And Isaac, you teach African American literature to France and Renaissance. What do you think about that? Do you think it's a responsibility for Black people to teach history, to educate non-Black people? You're muted, Isaac.
Oh, my bad. There's two things. First thing is, yes, we do actually, our narrative has been so corrupted that we cannot expect the same people that corrupted the narrative to correct it. We need to lead the charge, like, educate. If it means we're called angry or whatever, I don't care. I will tell you so that you do not have an excuse. The next time you come back to me speaking nonsense, I will slap you in the face, because you are choosing to be ignorant. And then, on the other hand, I believe, on the other hand, I agree with Iowa, some discussions should not be had, because there's a term that has been going around, race baiting, and literally someone will try to provoke you into these kinds of conversations that they are not willing to listen to, and they just want to make you look a certain way. And I think in this information age, there's, I call it enabling their cycle of intentional ignorance. Someone chooses to be ignorant, and for someone like that, there's no amount of education and discussion that is going to change their mind. So just put the information out there, and look for willing people that are willing to engage in a genuine discussion. Because, for instance, I have so many Chinese friends, and they have never interacted with a Black person. Like, before me, they had never interacted with a Black person in their life. And when they say the wrong thing, it's coming from a place of genuine interest and ignorance. And I will gladly sit down with them. And even the dumbest questions, I have been asked the dumbest things. Like someone one time was, we were seated somewhere having just having a time in the evening, and then there was a stone monument of a lion. And I think you can guess where this conversation is going. He was like, "So, have you touched a lion before? Do you guys have lions?" And my initial reaction was to get angry, but then I was like, okay, in this case, in China, it's true that people can truly be ignorant. Truly ignorant. And that's why, for me, I always like to draw the line between ignorant and just outright racist. That's why, for me, I prefer to associate with the older Chinese. Because they're straight up, no BS. And if they don't like you, they will say it to your face. So for me, I've had so many teachable moments with them, because they will engage in a conversation with you, and they have truly never interacted with anyone, not just black, but anyone different from their ethnicity. And I mean Chinese, Han Chinese to be specific. So for them, I'm willing to have those conversations, but there's some conversations that just are a waste of our time. So I'll put it that.
Thank you very much. And Jared, I know you have a lot to say about this. So what do you think? Do you think it's our responsibility of teaching, educating?
It's not necessarily it's not necessarily our responsibility to educate white people or people who are helping the system of racism along. I think it's more so our responsibility to make sure that we're telling our stories. You know, I think Isaac spoke to that earlier about how they have been the ones that have corrupted the history of people of color, right? And so, you know, I have this thing that you know, when I started a Black Man Reading, and when I just started writing poetry or whatever I'm doing, it's because Toni Morrison died, Maya Angelou's gone. Someone has to step into these spaces, and not to try to emulate these people, but to keep the tradition of storytelling alive. I think me and Isaac were talking about that too on another Zoom call. You know, there's one block of history that kind of has this blank zone on it, because a lot of our history was taught orally anyway. And then there's this other block that's coming because we aren't stepping up to be writers, I think, you know, to be writers and reporters of history. And so even this, you know, situation that's going on now, we have to be the documentarians of it, because we know that they will take the narrative and say that it was Amazon that stepped up, right? That it was the person, I forgot who did it, but the person in DC who painted Black Lives Matter on the road instead of Celinda, who actually is on the ground. You know what I mean? And so I think we have a responsibility to control our narratives, and the responsibility to control our history, the responsibility to get out there and document. And I think that's what kind of started driving me. And I'm not saying that there aren't people that are already doing it, right? But I just think that there was a wave of this in the 60s, and I want to say the 50s and the 70s with the Black Power movement. And there should be a similar wave. That wave should have never stopped. You know, to speak to my point earlier about us having to be as consistent as the system of racism is. You know, there shouldn't have been a time when we weren't pushing the line, where we got comfortable, where we thought that things were going okay, or that they were in an okay space. Because then we don't pay attention to the fact that it's probably a permanent occurrence. And like Celinda and everyone's been saying, if we don't dismantle and break it, if we aren't engaged in that activity daily, then it's going to eat us alive. So I think we don't necessarily have a responsibility to change their minds, or to educate them. But I do like this idea of, like, I think Iowa and Isaac said, you know, when they do present that opportunity, that we step into the light. But I think it's more so important that we have a responsibility to control our narratives and write our stories and champion, you know, the authors that matter to us.
You know, that's a question I also ask myself, because in school, the education system is already built, and that's where, you know, kids, they get to learn the history, and a lot of them, they don't read the books, you know, they listen to the teachers. And so as a Black person, I feel and I know I have to reread those books and learn the real history. But a lot of people don't know that. Don't you think that's actually where the problem is from? That we should look at it in more, and I feel, Selena, you have something to say about it. We should look at the education itself, because that's where the problem is.
You first, Selena.
Oh yeah, you too.
I wanted to jump in on that because as we have this discussion, you know, I always say, I openly discuss how I only have an 8th grade education from the U.S. education system. I mean, although I have attended university and taken classes that I wanted to explore or exploit sometimes, or learn more about, or enter classrooms intentionally at university to be a voice in there, to bring consciousness. You know, I feel like I have a PhD from the streets, and it's because we live this. We live this, and we have explored it. And we have our elders who have told us our true history, and that is passed down in our communities. It's passed down verbally over a dominoes table or a card game, when our elders are giving us and passing the wisdom down and the real truth and knowledge of what really happened. You know, it's my father telling me what it was like to eat in a Blacks only kitchen in the South when he was growing up, or when he said at 11 years old he had to pick 400 pounds of cotton every day. It was a requirement. And so it's our ancestors, our elders, who let us know what happened and what their lived experience is. And that is our history. That is what we know as truth. Because we can't trust the colonizer to tell us the truth about who we are. We have to know that from our own people. And that's why I have continued, because I always feel like we have to be in a learning stance. Every day we should be learning from each other. And what we have and the wisdom that we have gained, we have a duty to give to the rest of the generations and to the colonized people, to help them to decolonize and deconstruct. And so I create workshops, and I go and I intentionally have discussions about racial capitalism with people who are in workers' unions in the United States. I intentionally go out across the country and talk about what abolition really means. Prison abolition specifically has very little to do with the prison. It has everything to do with building the society that does not require prisons or police. And we have to provoke our people to have this kind of a consciousness that it is possible, and that we are powerful and we are mighty, and we have saved ourselves many times in our history, and we will continue to save ourselves as we move forward and persevere and dismantle the systems of oppression. And all of our work must be done from a Black liberation framework, because we know that when we lift Black people in any place in the world, everybody lifts. It does mean liberation for everybody. So anybody who is doing revolutionary work must do it from a Black liberation framework. It is imperative, and only we can do that. We can't trust anybody else to do that for us. And so that's why I believe so strongly that we are the ones who are the educators. We are bringing the wisdom to all of the future generations so that we can build the revolution that's necessary for our liberation.
Thank you so much, Linda. And I think, Iowa, you wanted to really jump on that?
Well, yes. Actually, on the matter of the education, like, I always also wonder until which point the education doesn't become another burden that we always must carry. Like, it ends up like, do I have to always go around, like, always having to explain myself, explain where I come from, explain, like, for me, that's like, of course, that we do have to do it until a certain point, but I wonder if at a certain point we don't have to, like, we are not putting one more like stone in our own head for people who maybe don't care, or people who just won't listen, or maybe they know it as well as us, but they don't really want to uncover it. So, like, I don't know what you would think about that.
Maybe that's a question we can address.
And yeah, like,
I will have something
it's a
to
question,
say
and it's
about
like
that.
something that for me it's very not really a question, but sometimes I feel like I through educating or having to educate people makes me sort of just fall in a trap where I feel like I'm sort of like, instead of just living my life or just going around, I am sort of forced to having to always explain something to someone, to having always to tell them about my origin, about this or about that. And yeah, sometimes it feels like I'm just some sort of justifying myself or explaining myself, and I don't feel like I owe that to anyone.
That's interesting. Oh, Danny, is Danny gone? He was out. He was actually. Oh, welcome.
Yeah. Can I speak?
Yeah,
sure.
Okay. Well, I feel it's very amazing the fact that now there are Black people, teachers that are academically equipped, that knows about our history. I think this is a very important factor because once we learn our personal history, we start acting exactly of what we are and how we are, and you know what I mean. Once we start acting that way, they will be forced. They will be curious to ask. They will ask themselves questions: why are these people acting this way? Then they will forced to go learn our history. Not we telling them I know who I am. I don't have to introduce myself. No, I am this, and this is my personality. You know what I mean? You're gonna find out why my personality is this way because this and that. So you go find out yourself. I'm not the one to explain who am I to you. No, you have to find out. Make a research about it. You know, probably this is the way we have to equip ourselves academically and act the same way, because when you don't know yourself, you act like who they told you that you are. Even here in Italy, the same thing. As in, Black people don't know their origin, they don't know their history, so they act like slaves that they make them think they are. So once we know we are who we are, then you start acting that way, and they will start questioning. Sometimes they ask me, why do you carry yourself like that? Because I know myself, so I don't have to tell you. So go find out, ask other people. You know what I mean? That is how it is.
Okay, I think Jared is completely reacting. Everybody agrees on everything you say. And Sonati, do you want to add something on that? Or she's actually applauding.
I don't even know if I need to add anything to what everybody else has said. I mean, I agree with everything that they have said. And it just makes me think of how we have to consistently have these conversations. I mean, as soon as everything went down with protesting, the first thing that people said, okay, we want to have a racial reconciliation roundtable. For what? Why? Are we going to solve it in one setting? No, we should be doing other things. Racial reconciliation will not fix that. So I think so often the responsibility continues to fall on us, even if we don't feel like we should be doing it. But it falls on us when we have those conversations at the table, when you may be the only one on the forefront like Celinda, or you may be the one in the classroom like Jared. It continues to fall on us, but I don't think it's a responsibility. I mean, I can send you a million books and articles and things like that, but you have to be willing to learn. And like Celinda said, you got to be a lifelong learner. This is not something that you're going to learn this month, this year. You have to continue learning about who we are so you can help change the narrative also.
Shanti, I'm actually going to continue with you because I know you have an organization and you're working with youth in involvement because you think it's something that is important and maybe that can actually nourish what we're trying to achieve right now. So can you tell us why do you think community engagement is an important tool for you?
So I have a nonprofit called Black Girls Rock Mississippi. Didn't expect to do it at all. We just had an event, but we kind of found out that girls needed a safe space to kind of express how they feel and kind of get feedback and just be themselves. So we really started working with our middle school girls, and the first book that we read was Push Out. We engaged in conversations about how the education system treats them, how they're more likely to be suspended over having a attitude. And so they not only learn just from literature and just reading, but they also learn from having conversations with politicians. They have conversations with lawyers. They know what it means to be the boots on the ground and the grassroots. And the reason why I feel like community engagement and civic engagement is very important is because I won't always be here. But I know if our youth can be a voice, they can get their point across, especially in a red state here. And so I work with specifically African American girls for that reason, because many of them are pushed out. I think Jared mentioned earlier before the call or even during, they're either sent to the alternative school. They don't get the opportunity to actually get a great education because they're already labeled, especially from elementary to middle school. So when we have these conversations with them, we want them to tell us what's going on. How do they feel? And so I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I'm having this conversation with her, and even my 14-year-old son. And it's sad, but we have to have these conversations as early as 8 years old, or maybe earlier, depending on what they go through. So I think it's very important for us to really break down that narrative of what they may learn at school. And then once we get them together and they break it down again, they kind of learn that's not their history. And so for me, I feel like that is a responsibility for me to tell them kind of what's going on and why that book Push Out matters, or The Color of Law, or why all the Black kids, just different books. And I think it's another book that I have, the first arc, like how do children learn about race and racism? When do they? And I have white colleagues, even to this day, who still haven't had a conversation with their children about race and racism. They don't have conversations, but we have to have those conversations. So I think it's more of just seeing how they can make an impact with their voice is so important. And so we train them, but they're the leaders. They lead the entire organization. We do what they say, and that's why we bring in politicians, we bring in lawyers, educators, to kind of help them throughout this process so they'll learn what it means to be at the Capitol Day, and what it means to write the legislation, and what it means to say, I don't care for you in the nicest way, but then understanding how their vote actually matters. So.
Thank you so much. And I'm actually going to go to Isaac to continue on that question, because you're also very involved. And what do you think of what Shanti said, that it's important to actually educate kids on racial justice? What do you think about that, as someone who's currently involved in Beijing?
Okay, so I really agree with what you said, especially because I'm partly in the education sector, so I do deal with kids from time to time, Chinese kids to be specific, and sometimes it's interesting to have these interactions with the parents, and then you have this impression of the parent, and then the kid comes in, and it's a totally different thing. And for me, I'm like, kids are taught to hate, be it hating themselves or hating other people. they're taught that, they learn it from somewhere. And in my class, every time I'm with kids or have in that setting, I try and expose them to, because sometimes it will be me, or I will have another teacher with me, a foreign teacher as well. And we will have these interactions, and we will do the most basic things to like just have them exposed. And this is something that especially is giving me hope for the next generation of Chinese, because I don't see the, because here it's not hatred, it's just the kids just look at you as, you know, when you're in that setting, in the class setting, it's just, oh, teacher, or it's, you know, my buddy. And then the parent comes to pick them up, and all of a sudden it's, oh, hey, Ryan. And we're back to that word. And then, you know, so you can see that you're in this setting and they're comfortable, and they learn that, you know, this person is actually okay. And then the parent comes back, and then that conditioning, they get back into that conditioning and that mentality of, okay, now you're not just my buddy, you're now a black person as well. So for me, it's never too early to start teaching kids, because that's the only way. Honestly, I feel like as much as we may try to educate this generation through friends and whatever, but like the next generation, teach the kids. That's the only way. I believe it's the only way. Yeah.
Thank you. You know, hearing you, I realized that, as you said, Santi, you say that, and Isaac, you say that as well. Kids are, you know, they're not born like that. They learn to be the way they are. And so I feel like there's a line between parents and kids. And if we are able to break that line, we can actually find solutions. But how do we break that line between two generations of parents who have a history that they teach the kids, and you who may even be a teacher and have the real history? But you can't really have an impact on that because there is a connection between the kid and his parents on racism. And that's an open question if any of you want to try to answer it. How do we break that line between two generations?
How would break the line? I think you can't break the line because the father or the parents have already their concept. Okay, maybe teaching the child, the child, the children will start another generation. So they have to teach other children, and okay, I have to give an example. There's something I saw a video on YouTube, on Facebook, and it happened here in Italy. Yeah, we know how racist it is, and this little girl of 6 years old, and she's mixed race. So her dad is Italian, and her mom African. So she was in the crowd with her father, and she started crying. And the dad said, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "How I wish I'm like you. How I wish I have your skin color, white." And her dad asked her why. She said because in school during the lesson, a white kid told her that her color was wrong. You know what I mean? That the real color is supposed to be white. You know, and it was amazing the way half-white father handled the case. He told her, "No, you are amazing," and the person telling you this thing just because he's jealous of you, and you don't have to listen to them. And but she was still crying, you know, and I felt helpless. I felt shocked. I felt grieved. You know, I felt really very bad because of what he did, and I don't know.
I totally understand. And I Jared as well. And if does anyone want to add to that discussion?
I just the mixed race piece, you know, as a mixed race Afro-Latina. I'm Chicana, which means that I'm indigenous to the land that I live in. My family, my mother's side of my family was here in New Mexico since this was Mexico. So they are indigenous people, and Chicano is what we call ourselves here. And then my dad's side of the family is where my blackness is from. And so as somebody who is a mixed race person in the world, for my whole life I've been told, what are you? What are you? And they want to shame the blackness out of us, always. And for many years in my family history, our blackness was hidden from us. My dad's side of the family would not speak about their blackness, ever. They would not talk about it because they were brainwashed into believing that if they hold back and hold their blackness and they just follow the rules, don't walk this street at night, don't go to these restaurants or neighborhoods, don't, you stay in this place where you're allowed to be. And if you just conform to those things, then you'll be able to survive. And they have spent always for generations just trying to be alive, just trying to stay breathing in the world. And so always that has been shamed out of us. And so what I felt so passionate when I entered this work as an organizer when I was just 17 years old and I was a street kid trying to find my way out of this oppression, I decided that I would not do that to my children, that I wanted them to know their whole history. That they had a right to their history, they had a right to know where they came from, they had a right to every piece of them. And that they should know that always and be proud. And don't ever answer somebody's question when they say, what are you? We are humans. How dare you belittle us this way? And our blackness is just as strong and powerful as anybody else's. And we honor that. And we honor all the pieces of us, always. And always teaching them to be proud of who they are. I just love what Dan was saying when he was talking about that, to stand in your own existence and your own self-determination always. And just trying to put that into the next generation, to the point that, my children are so woke that when one of my sons was in kindergarten, they had a program about Christopher Columbus, and he put his hand high up, and he got in trouble for it. He put his hand high up. He said, we don't celebrate that. He came here and he was a mass murderer. My mom told me, and they stand up. They stand up for the truth always. And because of that, all of the young people that we mentor here, they're woke and they're conscious and they are fearless. And that's who the future, that those young people are fire. And it's just an honor to be able to work with all of our young people here. And this is what we have to keep on instilling in them. Is exactly what Dan said, standing in their whole selves and not bending to anybody for that.
That's really amazing. Thank
That
you.
boy Dan just, yeah, man, know thyself, man. I talked about that on my Instagram the other day, man. Like, that was an old African adage, know thyself. And I mean, it's been, as above, so below. We've heard these things that go all the way back, and that is so true. Like when you make that decision, for those of us that are descendants of the African diaspora, there's this cutoff of information, and I can remember what made me become a Killing Missouri. I was in an African American literature class at my school, and they told us to close our eyes and envision Africa, right? And I wasn't as well versed in the history as I am now, but I had heard Nas, and a lot of it came from those the poor righteous teachers, the 5%ers, the Nation of Gods and Earths, and I closed my eyes and they said, "Now tell me what you see," and I was like, Kush, Mansa Musa, et cetera, et cetera. And the white professor said, "No, that's not what you see. You're lying." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Because everybody else was saying huts, mosquitoes, fat stomachs, the in the arms of the angel, you know, those commercials. And I was the only one saying that. And I was like, why does she feel comfortable telling me that this isn't what I'm seeing when I close my eyes and I imagine Africa? And I know Africa's not perfect. You know, I know that these things occur. There's you know, unrest in lots of places, but there's also this rich history, like you said. And once I knew that, and like I had that foundation, there's a up there that I was going to suggest. Black civilization, I believe, but just once you really have a connection with your information, it's so hard for someone to tell you who you are. It's so difficult for them to like give you this space for you to exist in, because you already know who you are, man. Boy, man, I mean, I want to flip over everything, dog. Like, that's so real, brother. I just had to speak to that.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I think in Africa, Africans, they know who they are. I'm from Africa and I've lived here. I know how we feel. Okay, we know who we are. We know we are powerful. We know mentally, physically, in any way. You know, we know we are powerful more than any other person. Okay. The problem is when we come to Europe, the Europeans, the white people themselves, they make us, they force us to feel in a certain way. And you know, that shock, when you feel that shock, it's only you be like, as in, I felt this way, and I know I am this way, but the reality is different. So, yeah, maybe it makes you lose somehow security of yourself. But and I will ask a question, because I really don't know how we do it, because we're all African, we're all black people, even if white people they are here. Okay, that means you accept the concept, as in you are promoting the concept, you like what we're doing. Okay, how can we empower our people of knowledge in Africa? Because there is the root. I believe if there's changes from the root, because there are billions of people in Africa, and if there are changes from the roots, we don't have to fight. We here, we don't have to fight. Because, yeah, it will be showing up in the televisions, in the media, everywhere, that the grassroots people, I call it people on the street, we are in the streets in Africa. So if it's happening there, they will start understanding that, yeah, this is real, this is something, you know, this is something big, and we are going back to our real position, our natural position, because we have that position, man, and we have been exploited in Africa by Europeans. You talked about maybe there are some unease in some African countries or in Africa. No, there isn't. It's been created. We know how. Yeah, and Africans know that. But the problem is they're expecting those people that have created those situations there in Africa to solve the situations. That is the problem. This is just our problem, you know. And if they were academically equipped like you, because you know yourself, you know your history, but we Africans, we don't know our history. We feel our history, but we don't know it as in written or read. We don't know, but we feel it inside us. We know, we feel it inside us. That is just great.
Yeah, man. I agree, man. I think that's the root of. I think there's a piece in there that you were speaking about that I think is the root of Pan-Africanism, and it reminded me a lot of what Malcolm X was trying to do in his later days, when he was realizing what we're realizing right now, that it's a global issue, right? That you know that we need to reach across the Atlantic, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's the root of it. I think me and Celinda were talking about it earlier. It's important, like you said, even though, and I think that's one of the questions, even though education is usually one of the first things that we talk about, absolutely, free Palestine, one of the first things that we talk about, I think, like you said, though, that's the road, man. Like when we get that locked in, we can give that power back. And I think that, I love, like, when we read about Pan-Africanism, it's like we understand that, you know, I'm over here now, right? You know, the boat got docked. You know, I'm over here. But that's a call to action for the fact that we realize that the power base, we need to re-empower Africa with the tools that the universe somehow managed to put us in, positions for having, right? So we're here, we're docked here. Okay, well, how can we get the power back to where we know that if we can light that up, then it's gonna turn up everywhere, right? It's a wrap at that point, right? Because you guys, like you said, you feel that, you know it, and you feel it. We don't get to feel it, I think a lot of times. And I think that's what we someone like me is reaching back for. Just this understanding of this, right? Because I think a lot of times in America, our masculinity or who we are is outside of us so much, so that it's about what we put on, it's about the energy we put out sometimes, and that what's already in us, like what you were saying, and not even just the masculinity piece in general, like culture, etc. And so we want to be so loud because we're unheard. It's just so many other things, man, that just made me. That's why I was flipping stuff over, Danny, man. I think I'm gonna go back, listen to this, and put a few of your quotes on a T-shirt now.
Yeah, because African, being a black man is a feeling, and if you grow up in Africa, and I'm sure I have many African friends, and you talk to them, you feel how they feel. You understand how powerful they are, mindfully, the way they think. But the problem is that lack of education. I don't want to say education because
yes, I know what you mean. I feel what you're saying. Like
there's no
one
words
of those tools
to explain myself. Yeah, because we feel it. We have power to do anything. Okay, but we lack maybe guidance, as in like someone equipped like you, as in both the both history, white and black history. So probably we have to have something like that in Africa and start from somewhere. And once there is a revolution from the grassroots, from the roots of the problem, believe me, we don't have to struggle. We don't have to create something like this. They will understand themselves. Yeah, they will change the way they look at the black man, and they will start understanding that yes, he is powerful and he is who he is. And that is it.
Like I said, I think that's the basis of it, man. Like I think, not to like lighten up with what forces led us to be over here, but I think when we talk about Pan-Africanism, man, that's what it's about. That's why we're here. And so we got those tools. We need to reach back. It's that simple, right?
You have the tools, yeah.
Yeah, I'm about to make a run, guys. I'm gonna try to get back on if you're still here. But love to everybody that came. I gotta go make a run and shoot me some text messages, follow me, etc., so we can keep dialogue.
Absolutely, and as you promised, we're going to send a list of books for everyone who's interested. We can leave it on the page, and people can come and look for it. Actually, so thank you very much for being with us, Akeem, since you're leaving. But I also, because I know a lot of people stayed because they do have questions. So I'm inviting the public now. If you want to show your faces,
let them tell them too. If they have any questions specifically for me, I can just send them to me, and I'll spear your fingers.
Perfect.
All right, peace and light.
Bye. Thank you very much. Akeem. Hi, Mariana. You're muted.
I just turned my screen on, figured I'd say hello, but I'm so impressed by all of the wonderful work that you're doing. And, I'm in New York, and I'm a street medic, and we've seen a lot of really extreme violence at the hands of the police in New York City. We had last week a pregnant woman who was detained and taken into police custody and had a miscarriage. We had another 16-year-old who was also pregnant, and she was detained. We're seeing so much violence being perpetrated by the police against New Yorkers of every walk of life, and it's just so frightening. I live in Long Island, and we're starting to see a little bit more of that. What we're having a lot of is these patriot groups, these white supremacists that show up and have their white pride rallies with their pickup trucks and their Trump flags, and and the police do nothing to stop them. So we have shut down highways, we have shut down parkways, and we are coming out 2,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 strong in suburban Long Island. And I think that goes to show that we have had enough, and it's time for everybody to step up, because no one is free until we are all free. And so I just want to thank all of you for coming out today. And if anybody is watching from New York and they want to get involved, either in New York City or Long Island, please reach out to me, because we are doing a tremendous amount of work, and we can use all the help we can get. So solidarity, everybody.
May I speak to Militia P?
Sorry, I didn't hear. Can you?
May I speak to the militia piece that she commented on?
Oh yeah.
I wanted to talk about that just a little bit, because people keep calling them out, but they're actually embedded in the history of this country. The very first slave catchers were white militia groups on horseback that were contracted through the courts. And so us knowing that, the very first border patrol in the United States were vigilantes at the border who were trying to control Asian immigrants, API immigrants, coming into the country at the turn of the century in 1907. And so white vigilantism is embedded deeply into this country. This is not a new phenomenon. This is actually where policing and government and military was born from. And so this is not new. They have always been here, and they've always been part of the imperialist structure as a tool of oppression. And so that is absolutely who they've always been.
Thank you very much. I see a lot of people actually are reacting on the chat. I'm inviting you to actually join us if you want to discuss this.
Hi.
Hi.
Could you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I'm speaking from Kenya, Africa, and this is a really great panel and a great audience for today's session. So I had a couple of questions regarding the systemic and systematic problems that are affecting Americans, and also problems that are also affecting us in Africa because of the new colonial legacy we adopted. So let me just jump straight to the questions, right? So one thing that has happened in today's society is about Americanization and the American precedent to the European states that inspired colonialism, the scramble and partition in Africa, right? So primarily the precedent that was acquired by the European states to scramble and partition Africa was primarily adopted from the United States of America, and how it created this precedence about the African working system and how we were affected systematically by all these problems even in the new colonial era, right? So I had a couple of questions regarding the solutions that are being discussed right now. So some of the solutions that are being discussed are, one, let us abolish the policing system rather than resorting to reforms. So that's the first solutions that people are proposing, right? But even secondly, the question is, what if abolition fails, then we will have reforms as the last resort, right? So what if the reforms takes the form of the previous manifestation or a form of metamorphosis? If you understand how the criminal justice system of the United States of America works, it's a form of a metamorphosis that primarily was once covert system, right? We have the private criminal justice entities being able to leverage a lot of profit out of polarizing the rate of imprisonment in many states in the country. So to what extent are we going to eliminate metamorphosis? But even secondly, when abolition fails of the police system, what other resort do we have? Because again, I listened to some of the proceedings that happened in the Senate right now, and some representatives are saying you cannot take away criminality within the criminal justice system. Law needs to be deterrent, right? We need to prevent people from doing the wrongs. So for instance, if there is polarization of crime in a certain area and we eliminate the presence of the police, then there'll be so much inferiority of the citizens at that point in time. And the question would be, where is the social contract here at that point in time? Because the responsibility of the state is to protect me as much as the voices of the sovereign is important. So I had those questions which are very critical. And another on the question of, I had something called, on the question of the catalyst, I had someone say in the panel talking about a catalyst, and it was the panelist from China. So the question is, how are we going to prevent that? Because as much as the problems are there, the only thing that remains right now is what the ancestors talked about, Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. What should we do against the system which eats us up when we revolt and they tell us that we are indoctrinating people, yet we are emancipating people from these shackled, centralized systems? So yeah, I'd like to hear some responses regarding that. Thank you so much.
Yo, I just wanted to say what's up, man. Yeah.
Hi, actually, how are you, Jared?
Yeah. So I'm a bad guy because I didn't hear all the questions, but I just wanted to say what's up, man.
Good, I'm fine. Thank you so much.
To the abolition piece, as somebody who does work in the United States as a prison and police abolitionist, the police in this country, in the United States, it's a false narrative that they're here to protect our community or help protect us from each other, from crime. The role of police in the United States is to protect the wealthy and their resources and control people of color and the poor. That is their only role in our society. The brainwashing that has happened, the colonization that has happened, is this false narrative of serve and protect in U.S. policing, and it's not real. That is not real. They don't serve and protect shit in my neighborhood. And so we understand that we don't need them. We don't call the police when things are happening in our neighborhood. My people don't even call the police because we know it's not safe. We could be murdered if they come to our neighborhood. We don't call them to our neighborhood. They're already there, and they are not there for our protection. So that's a false narrative. But what we're seeing is the system trying to preserve itself. And so they continue to spin rhetoric so that they can try to uphold and protect the system structure as it exists, because consciousness is happening and people are understanding the exact truth about what policing is in our community. And our people know that police and prisons are violence. So any kind of state-sanctioned violence to punish violence can never heal us or end violence. It only creates an endless cycle of violence. And we understand that through Justice Ubuntu, right? When we know that we can restore restorative justice, we can bring each other in and we can hold each other and be able to restore. Very recently in the fall, I have people in my neighborhood who were shooting each other with AKs. And we were able to bring them, both our OGs, our hood, our people in, and we were able to check their guns at the door, and we had a session and we restored, and we ended the violence. And we are capable of doing this work ourselves. We don't need them. We don't need them. And they're shook because they understand the consciousness is happening, that we don't need them. And so prison and police abolition has almost nothing to do with the prisons or the structure. It has to do with us building the healthy society that no longer needs those systems. Our ancestors did not need prisons or police. And so that's what abolition is about. It's about a adjustment of resources to the people in the struggle, because violence is only a symptom of people in the struggle. And so when people have the resources that they need, there is not violence against each other the way it is today. People are fighting to exist, and that's why violence happens in our neighborhood. And so this is what they're concerned about. And so this is why when we say defund the police, that can be like a liberal rhetoric, right? About how to sustain the system. They're trying to appease us to not arrive at abolition. And so we have to continue to push towards that liberation and what that looks like, because only dismantling those systems is what our liberation could lead to.
Could I intervene on that just shortly? Okay. So at the expense where we abolish the whole system, so as to invoke a form of restorative justice? Do we now come up with a community-based framework of defending ourselves? Because when you say that we need to defend ourselves, we don't need the policing system, we don't need the prison system, reform is killing us, we need to get rid of it and now integrate the resources to the community. So do we say that we need to come up with a community-based defensive system to defend ourselves as the community, regardless and regardless of the state's presence, because we've suffered so many harms at
So yes, the answer is yes. We have everything we need to protect our own selves, and in fact, we already do so. And so, most oppressed communities in the United States in urban areas do not call the police already. We already don't use those systems. We already have our own ways of solving our problems, and we all understand that. And so that it's already at play. It's just about growing that, globally and in our own cities and states and across the country, so that we can all be in solidarity with that. But what is happening, and the pushback is the wealthy, right? Because the wealthy are the ones who are protected by the system, and they're afraid because we're coming for the stuff that is owed to us, and that's what they're shook by. They need the military and they need the police to protect them and their resources and their access to racial capitalism. So as soon as there's no police or military to stop us, we're coming for our shit.
I have a question. So, I work for a bank, and I guess I hadn't, I was very much, and I have been taught throughout my life, oh, capitalism is the answer, capitalism is the answer. And it took, all of my life and the recent events for me to realize, oh wait, the white man might not be right. That he might be wrong. And now I'm here working at a bank, and I like the people. There are some really good people, right? And I think there is value in pushing a company to change within, but I also hate that I'm working for a bank. I don't know if I can, and I don't know what to do. And I would love some advice.
That's a very interesting concern.
I hate that I'm taking some space of other panelists when it's fun, but just don't, it's not the people, it's the system. So yes, there's fantastic people that work inside of capitalism and inside of police department. There's people that don't want to do this harm, right? And they're just a tool of the system. And we need banks. Our people need banks. And there's a way to create state banks and credit unions and things that work for the people that are not at the exploitation of us. When we look at Wells Fargo and we look at Bank of America and what they did in the Dakota Access Pipeline and how they invested in the exploitation and the harm of our land and our people, that is what we're talking about. So we need systems to be able to exist still.
I think that with my bank, which this isn't going to be telling to what bank I work at all, it's, made by a white person for white people. That's how it was founded, and that in itself, I don't know if it could change. I feel like it's a little bit like the whole, you got this boat that's got a ton of holes in it, why don't we just build another one? I don't know. But thank you for your advice. I think I have a lot more clarity now.
I contribute something regarding that.
Brittany, are you talking?
Yeah, I wanted to say something that was said right now.
You're a little bit frozen. Do
Can
you
I
want
go?
to restart?
And now, hello, can you hear me?
You're a little bit
Can
frozen.
you hear
I
me?
don't know what's happening.
Right now, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Give it another try.
So, she said she brings in a very good point about capitalism, right? I remember when reading the Communist Manifesto by Friedrich Engels. Friedrich Engels had a father who had a manufacturing industry, right? And he was trapped. He could just, at the same time, he still had to maintain the manufacturing and fight the right proletariat. So he went and told them about he's gonna write about it to help them from these shackles of capitalism. He was beaten up. He approached Karl Marx and he presented the idea to Karl Marx to work on a project to dismantle this whole structural capitalism, the whole capitalism and how it seeks to fragment the rights of the workers. And he wrote the Communist Manifesto. So it
Yeah, thank you, Gordon.
I thought it was only for me. I don't know what's happening. He's actually gone.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody comes back. Oh, Ali, you're back. You completely froze, so we didn't get a chance to. Maybe if you want, do you want to write down your question? You can write it in the chat.
Okay, I will. Thanks so much.
So while we're waiting for Ali's question, we're actually at the end of the panel, and this was the period that I was planning on giving you guys. If you have something you want to talk about now, if you have something you want to say, Selena, I really want you to give us the resources, what we can do, people outside of New Mexico, what we can do for Keep From White. I know you said it. Can you repeat it again for us? And guys, if you have something more to add, this is your time. But I'm going to start with Celinda, and I'll make a turn for everybody else.
Yes, so we're encouraging anybody across the world. Like I explained earlier, Clifton is a slave in the state of New Mexico, and only the plantation owner, our governor, can free him. And she could do so if she was just willed to do so. And so please call her and demand that she free Clifton White. Her phone number is area code 505-476-2200. 505-476-2200 in the United States. And her name is Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, and she is the governor of New Mexico. And if she was just willed to, if she was just had the will, a wave of a pen, she could free him.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to write this down for people who are asking it in the chat. Can you check for the number if I got it right?
Yes, it is. It is correct. And it's also the header on my Facebook page and on my other pages. We have it spread widely on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter right now. If you just search hashtag free Clifton White, you'll be able to see the script and the phone number.
Thank you very much. So people, wherever you are, this is something you can do. You can call. It's a number we can use. You can look for her page actually on Facebook. It's public, so you would be able to find that number. And so I'm going to go to you, Danny. Do you have some final, or maybe I'm going to go to Jared because you you actually have something to do and you're leaving. Do you have some final words for that panel?
Thank you to you guys for sharing your perspectives. They were extremely enlightening. If you have anything or any books that you can send me and any articles, I hope that everybody's going to follow Black Man Reading on Instagram and Facebook. Please get those resources to me. I think I just went and checked a second ago, and a lot of you guys have already followed. But if not, follow us on Instagram, A Black Man Reading. It's the same name on Facebook. Thank you. And please, can you send me a copy of the video so that I can go through and put the books that you guys gave and the books I'd already gotten situated for a list so that I can send it to you guys and anyone else that needs it directly. Feel free to DM me at A Black Man Reading.
Thank you very much, Jared. And the live is actually going to be available on Quarantine Renaissance page, so you can go there and just and find it. But we will save it for you, just in case.
Yeah, save it so I can have it. Because I want to put it on my on the website so people can watch it over there too, just in case it comes down off of Facebook.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you for coming.
Peace and
love. Isaac, do you have some final words? Some final words for this panel?
Yeah, I really admire the work that all you guys are doing. I learned so much today. We're trying to do, so basically in Beijing, if any of you are ever in Beijing, you're welcome to check out what we're doing here. We're just trying to get together as a community. We're not, it's a small community, but it's a beautiful one. You have the Caribbean diaspora, you have Africans, you have African Americans, you have people from Europe. It's just one big mash, and it's a hard. It's not the easiest place to enact change or inspire change, but we're just trying to get together. And I think one of the biggest problems we've historically had as a Black community is we have always had a problem with unity. Basically, we have different Black narratives, and just coming together and having this one single-mindedness has always been our problem. And we're just trying to create that community where we stand up for each other. So right now, when there's a problem that is affecting the Africans, everyone stands up together, and the Chinese are confused. They don't know who is African, who is American, who is Caribbean, and that's how it should be. So we just keep striving for that unity. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you very much, and I think that's actually something that we discussed yesterday when we were trying to do the first live, and it's something we're going to continue to talk about if you actually follow Quarantine Renaissance, because it's a subject that needs to be addressed, the unity. And I think it's actually 5 or 6 in China, and you have been awake the whole time. This was supposed to be a 1.5 hour panel. It ended up being...
It was too good. It was too good.
Yes, so I couldn't stop it. It was just amazing.
We appreciate Isaac. We appreciate.
Yeah,
I appreciate you being able to stay that that late for a panel. Yeah. And Ayoa, do you have something to say before we close the panel? You're muted, Ayoa. We can't hear you. You're muted.
Sorry. Just wanted to say that it was really a pleasure listening to all of you.
the more personal point of views, the more professional ones, the more personally involved ones, Celinda's case, for instance. Yeah, it's really has been a pleasure, and I hope I really learned about it, and I especially learned from I think I will try even to educate myself before I can even think about educating others. So just from this perspective, it's great, and thank you all.
Thank you very much, Iowa. And I think, Isaac, actually, you talked about it. You said, education is a never learning experience. You have to keep educating yourself. Even if you feel that you know a lot, it's something we need to pursue. And now I'm going to you, Santi. Do you have something to say before the closing?
Sure. I would just like to say that I have learned a lot from each one of the panelists. I think one thing to definitely take from this is that we're all the boots on the ground. We're doing different work, and collectively we continue to make a difference. And so although I have a nonprofit, I also work in the field of sexual violence and just violence prevention. And I see that Black Trans Lives Matter has been on our group chat, which is very important. And so that's one of the areas that I work in. I also work in alcohol and other drugs prevention. And so for me, looking at the Black community, that's something that I'm continuing to look at, because we can go back to slavery when rape continuously occurred among our African-American, our Black women. And as that continue, and then just knowing what that movement looked like, those women also were a part of the LGBTQ plus community. So I just want to say I appreciate everyone and their wisdom. I think there's still some learning that we all can do, but I think collectively we can continue to make a difference wherever we are, and hopefully one day we can come together.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And I'm receiving chats from people saying how much they got chills, and even I am listening to you guys, and I do get chills. And I want to go to Danny. Dan, do you have something to say?
Yeah, first of all, I have to tell Sister Celinda that really I personally feel you, and I understand your pain, and I thank everyone that has listened to this story. And I really wish you the best, and I'm 100% sure that you will really have success, and you find a way out, definitely. And I will try to call the number. I just hope she picks up the phone. And I'm very sorry. And yeah, it is life. And I think you'll learn also many things about what happened to you. And so it will probably make you become more resilient, as a person. So it's also, you're growing also as a person. So having more experiences about from these. And also I have to thank every panelist, everyone present. And I love this movement, this self-help philosophy, self-education, because I think if I'm educated, you're educated, we become collective, and we become collectively educated. So probably the workload will be less to try to educate someone else, because people that are educated are more. So I'm very happy to be part of this, and I wish you all success, and I wish us success. We'll make it, and we'll become great. Try to change the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danny, and we will continue to have those discussions, as I said, because they're very important, and that's how we realize that we spent 3 hours talking, and we still have a lot to talk about. But at some point, I have to let you guys go because I know you have a lot to do. You guys are busy, and it's late. But I see that Shanaka is here, and Mariana as well. If you have something to say, because you guys are part of Quarantine Renaissance, if you have something that you want to say about the panel, please unmute yourself and do so.
I just want to say that I thoroughly enjoyed the discussions. And, the fact that we are all over the world and have the same experience
when we also have the same solutions speaks volumes. So I'm looking forward to future discussions, and I really want to say I enjoyed you all today.
And thank you, Roland, for this. I think your questions were very, very well elaborated. They just sort of very naturally covered all the points we needed to talk about. And that helped a lot. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great moderation. Very, very well done. Thank you.
Thank you to you guys, honestly. And guys, if you have people who are still listening and people who are watching the live, if you have questions, leave them in the comments, and I think we can direct them to the panelists, and they will try their best to answer your questions. Mariana, did you have something to say?
I just want to thank everybody who took the time out of their day to show up for this. You know, as a white presenting Latina, you know, I recognize the privilege that I have. You know, so it's very helpful because it gets me into places and they don't see me coming. But you know, I will never know what my brothers and sisters who look differently like me experience. And I am so grateful for all of you for sharing your experiences and for sharing your stories. And it is unfortunate that the burden is on you to educate everybody else. And I think it's very important for white passing, white presenting, and white people to take the onus themselves, to educate themselves, and then to educate one another. Because I remember earlier on when somebody was like, oh, well, they think they're being nice, but you know, like, how do you tell them that they're not being nice? Well, that's when it's, you know, us white people, that's our job to call out our fellow white people and let them know, like, they need to knock that shit off. And so again, I'm just so incredibly grateful for all of you for showing up and for speaking your truth. So thank you.
Thank you very much. In the coming weeks, we are going to try to have lives in different languages because this is a transnational movement and we want everybody to be represented. And the next one is likely to be in French. So if you want to participate, you are very welcome. We will post the dates. For now, thank you so much for being here. Our panelists, thank you. I don't even have the word to say thank you because thank you is like not enough right now. But please support Celinda right now because it is something that is needed. And she provided the number, we will provide it. You can also see it in her page. Please call. I think this is the one thing you can do tonight, actually, before you go to sleep. This is something we all should do because it's not fair that someone who is fighting for his people is actually imprisoned at all. And thank you, and thank you again. And see you for the next panels in different languages.